Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Sunday, the 19th of July, 2026. This is our 244th Tafseer session. The format will be Tafseer, followed by Q&A, and then followed by a Palestine update. The Q&A, we recommend you can submit your questions via email or our Telegram group, or if you like, jump on the mic. We can't always guarantee we can get through all the questions, but we will be saving questions for future response. And every month we have a dedicated Q&A. Palestine update has moved to Rumble. So if you want to hear us in real time, you can join on Zoom. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait for the update to go on Rumble. And inshallah, there's always events happening. And we do recommend you check last week's Palestine update because it had a considerable amount of detail. It was a good catch up, and it also provided a very good balance between being complete sycophant towards Iran, as opposed to having a critical eye on the events that happened in the past. So obviously right now we know that the GCC have been complete sellouts of the Ummah, whereas Iran has, at least whatever their motivation is, they've made a stand. So we make that clear that this does not exonerate past events. However, right now, the critical issue is that Israel is the existential threat for the Ummah. And it is just a foot of America. So without Israel and without US bases, the Ummah can breathe. And ironically, people try to make this into sectarian. If a person actually cared about their sect, where does American hegemony feature in their sectarian worldview? What madhab is America? What madhab is Israel? So questions people need to ask themselves. And also on a related note, we did a recording in relation to Adnan Rashid and Mohammed Hijab, a debate between the two. We've started a first session on that as well, which goes into considerable detail, putting the record straight on that subject as well. So these are critical times. So we consider this and topics related to that of vital importance. And again,
it should come soon, inshallah.
Inshallah soon,
for 2 weeks in bits, and maybe in 3 bits or something.
Yeah, so the first one we'll probably do in 2 sections, and then we'll have to do a future recording.
That's management and editing. It's none of my business.
Yeah. So inshallah. So the point is, these are important issues to discuss, because right now, even the liberation of Palestine has been weaponized and ignored by the GCC and sectarianism. I mean, anyone with even a slightly retentive memory will be able to recall how it's been used to derail genuine resistance. For example, in Iraq, in Syria, in Algeria, all the time they weaponize the Madakhila inclined people or other camps, but ultimately it's not about sectarianism, it's about Iman and Kufr. We can disagree, we can have difference of opinion, but when you have an enemy who showed their fangs to the extent that even Ben Gvir is talking about putting crocodiles in moats outside the Palestinian prisoners. He's acting like an actual Bond villain, but the retarded amongst us think it's all about Shia Sunni. So, and this is the beauty about Tafseer. We go straight to the Kitab and the Mutawatir Hadith in all our analysis, and let the Quran lead. So this leads us nicely to this subject.
Absolutely. Without that, you are lost. And we showed also in that, except the objective situation, historic development of this conflict since maybe 40 years, something like 50 years. And then we showed that Adnan Rashid, who claims to be a historian, that he's completely unaware or he hides fundamentally important historic situations. He seems to be not living here. Maybe he's in the other side of Mars and came recently here, maybe, but otherwise, the way he describes things shows completely dead brain. So we classified him there. Either he's completely uninformed and he should not talk about things he has no knowledge about it. What he's doing is violating Allah's command. Don't follow what you don't have knowledge about. So I have no knowledge, I cannot speak about it. That's you should say. إن السمع والبصر والفؤاد كل أولئك كان عنه مسؤولا. Heart, eyes, and ears will be questioned about all this. That's number one. So, or he's a stooge with the regimes. They found the donkey and they're riding on him, or he's a sellout working for money. These are 3 options for him to choose. He has the choice. He can do it. although I've tried to, the Rush was focused mostly on the issue of exposing him. I said, no, our issue is to expose the issue itself, and then by necessity, he's exposed. We don't care about persons. But ultimately, if a person is in a certain situation, then he has to be also exposed. With the exposition, what is the situation? And also you will hear certain eyewitness statements of myself meeting with Salman bin Aziz, the current king, and Sultan bin Aziz, who died before the Kirish kingdom. And certain just episodes for fun. I sat with them in the same room and have certain discussion. Some of them relevant to the constitution, some showing that without sitting next to them, you don't know these people. I don't care. They may claim, oh, we are like Naif bin Abdulaziz, clearly almost certainly a kafir. Saying we are نحن دولة سنية سلفية. We are a Sunni Salafi state. He himself and his dawla is neither Sunni nor Salafi. You can't classify it in any religion. It's a state of people who want kingdom, keep kingdom, and willing to prostrate and be sycophant to America, and being tyrannical to the people under them. So they are slaves for the top, tyrants over the one below them. The lowest of low human being carries. That's it. Which religion is that? You can classify whatever you want. Is it Hindutva? It's nationalism? It's no. It is royal egoism. I own the country. Everyone is my slave. But since I don't have the structure, the capability to be the ruler and the one who commands things, another world power can give me that. I'm slave of that world power. So with the slaves for the world powers, completely submissive, as this was shown, and tyrant and oppressive toward them in their under their rule. But this is another issue. Well, let's continue with our tafsir.
Okay, so we are on Surah Ar-Rum, Ayah 33. I'll read it out, and then Professor will give the tafsir, inshallah. Other translation. وَإِذَا مَسَّ النَّاسَ ضُرٌّ دعوا ربهم منيبين إليه ثم إذا أذاقهم منه رحمة إذا فريق منهم بربهم يشركون. Now thus it is when affliction befalls men, they cry out to their sustainer, turning to him for help. But as soon as he lets them taste of his grace, lo, some of them begin to ascribe to other powers a share in their sustainer's divinity. Next translation. When harm touches people, they call on their Lord, turning to him for help. Then right after he gives them a taste of his mercy, some of them associate others with their Lord.
Yeah, that's the meaning is very clear. That's human nature. Because deep inside, they know the only one who can help in real calamity, especially extreme calamities like at sea, like in thunderstorm. The people scream, oh God, oh God, oh God. The bombs fall in the World War, for example. I remember seeing a movie and the woman running with her child, poor woman, but maybe she's not participating in the war in any sense. And then the bullets flying here and there, but she seems to be surviving. Always she said, oh God, help us, God, help us, God. They're addressing nobody. That's God. But in this situation, everyone knows intrinsically that only God can help, if there is any help possible. But when that ends and they are in safety, some people continue in that path and they recognize, I woke up to this reality. Some go back to their shirk or even atheism. Someone of the Da'i in America was mentioning a case of a woman who was ardent atheistic, and refusing to say, I was witness for a case that her son was playing, and then he ran off like children to the street, and a racing car was coming, a fast car. So it was a small bike, I think even a tri-leg or something, was about to cross the street. So she ran behind him, but she knew that she would not catch him. And they said, oh God, oh God, oh God. The atheist one saying that. For some reason, so the child veered to the side. So he was not destroyed by the car. Instead, the next day, she was arguing for atheism. That's it. That's it. But the real truth present in the intrinsically built in deep structure of the mind and the psychology or the self-consciousness is that there's an absolute power which will be able to stop the universe if necessary. Will he do or not, that is up to his liberty, but you call for that. That's the only one you can call at the moment. The moment that's over, she will find the argument. Now, actually, he saw a wall and turned to catch the ball. He will find all kinds of arguments to persist on, or instead of going deeper and recognize the whole reality and take things in context with the reality. You will try to escape to your atheism. That's for an atheist. For others, go associate with part of him. Oh, that was because the conditions were right. Oh, because the policeman intervened. All these things, that's all turning to other, essentially to other deities. If it's really connected, that you think God is not there or did not help me or something like that, or some other things like that. Okay, so so I think the ayah is clear. But if you see examples from reports of the ayah, from your own experience with friends and so on, and that's a way to work in the reality. You can see it. And the Quran is mentioning this reality. Obviously mentioning it, not to educate about human nature and psychology. You should know yourself better. But to rebuke humans who do that and to warn you from falling in this. This is in the structure of the human being. Actually, in every finite created being have this structure by necessity. So be alert about that and be self-focused and self-critical. Be self-critical. Look in yourself. Analyze yourself. One way to do it, that the moment you feel that it's time to go to bed, or it's a time because tomorrow you have work and so on, just add 5 minutes ahead and go earlier by 5-10 minutes, and then while in bed, start talking to yourself and what did I do today? Or talk to God. This happened today. Why did you allow? Even you talk like friend to friend. Why did you allow that to happen? Next time, be more kind to me. You may know, you should know that God is managing the whole universe and you are integrated in that. Not all what you ask here will be delivered the way you wish it. It may be delivered another way you never believed. But this way will discharge the darkness from your mind and relieve your heart. That's if you're a believer. If you're not a believer, then say, God, if you exist, help me overcome this issue, for example. That's effective. That works. And the only one you can communicate this way is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God. Always assumed to be God. So even an atheist has access to that. But what normally happens is that, oh, if I go to bed early, then these questions come to mind, or let me grab to the bottle, or have a sniff of cocaine. Just skip it. And then you indoctrinate yourself, intoxicate yourself to avoid looking in yourself and do any accountability. If you do that daily, then most likely you will be ultimately getting in a certain direction. But this requires, again, self-reflection. Why I'm grabbing the bottle? What does it do? I know next day it will be headache and I'll be vomiting, it will be disgusting. Why I'm doing it? But you have to. You have to do that. There's no escape from that. And if you have friends and family who are found a bit of the way, at least the first step on the way, they should advise you and care for you. Not rebuke you. Like if you consult our Wahhabi and say, oh, you're a kafir, you should not think this way. This is a bad friend. Avoid all these extremists. All these stupid guys. Find the middle way, the reasonable people who will turn you away from the wrong, at least turn you toward the right direction. Yeah, start here. But you have to start. You have to cooperate. Okay, that's philosophical, but let's go back to the Quran. That's describing the reality to warn you, but it must be a true description. If the Quran is from Allah, it is a true description, yes. But why is it mentioned there? To educate us about psychology? No, that's a side effect. To warn you, this is the situation, you have to be continuously in self-criticism. And this necessity is not possible and will never persist unless you get yourself down into humility. Avoid arrogance. If you fall into arrogance and refuse to take your ego out of the center, saying, I'm not the center of reality. Even if I don't believe in a God, I am not the center of reality. The universe is the center. Something else is the center. Get yourself off center, and then you start step by step. What is the center? And then you will get there if you do it. But if you're not willing to do it, like Trump, for example, we don't want to commit our politics here, but we apply that, then you will never get anywhere. I will end in disgrace and collapse and wait, inshallah, hopefully, in short order. Short order means few weeks and months. You will see the complete disgrace of the national America, unless he suddenly wake up miraculously. In that case, seems to need a miracle, and just cut his daughter short and say, "Okay, we have started that nonsensical war. It doesn't make any sense. We have been defeated. I'm going home." I leave that. That was a great mistake. The only correction for that is just leave home. Leave home, even without any agreement. Agreement is too much restrictive at the moment. Neither the outside will believe him anymore, nor he will be able to overcome his year. But at the first step of coming here, so this is an unmanageable situation unless I leave. Otherwise, the calamity will reach its absolute maximum. Let me not go there. Next ayah.
ليكفروا بما آتيناهم فتمتعوا فسوف تعلمون. As if to prove their ingratitude for all that we have granted them, enjoy then your brief life, but in time you will come to know the truth. Next translation. As if to show their ingratitude for all that we have granted them, enjoy your brief life, then for you will soon know.
Yeah, so this addressing those who, after the hardship is gone, where they're screaming for God's help, now they are suddenly turning away from him, continuing their old ways, and thus rejecting our favor, rejecting our revelation, our ayah. Nothing can be done about this. We tell them, don't think you will enjoy this life much longer than that. 1 year, 10 years, 70 years, 100 years, if you're coming to very old age. Ultimately, you will come to us and you will know the truth. You will face the truth one day, by necessity. The other faction, they believe, I'm not going to face anything. They already know resurrection, or there's no God. Okay, wait for that to happen, the calamity to happen. Then you will be dumbstruck. So don't encourage yourself to continue in error by claiming, there's no resurrection. There's no divine being. Or, Jesus carried all sins away from me. I may be questioned a little bit, but I'm saved as long as I believe that he died on the cross for me. All this is nonsense. Don't go into this. Don't let yourself trouble. This is the trouble most American, the common public, are falling in. Not the elite. Most of the elite are atheists or non-believer, but they use that for the population. Don't worry, we are already forgiven. We're God's own people. We're the New Jerusalem. Just relax. So a small bit here and there, attacking some people, killing 1 million Iraqis. It's just a footnote. It's not devastating, completely devastating. It's just, if you are a Catholic, you may go through the perjury and be clean and go. If you are Protestant, there's even no perjury. Essentially, I'm just making things grotesque like this. There are fine points there, but ultimately, we are saved. We are the sons of God and his adoptive children, so ultimately we'll be there. Nothing will happen to us. That's the way the devil pulled you into your own demise and destruction. Yeah. Next ayah.
أم أنزلنا عليهم سلطانا فهو يتكلم بما كانوا به يشركون. Have we ever bestowed upon them from on high a divine writ which would speak with approval of their worshipping aught beside us?
Mm-hmm.
1 second.
Next translation.
Yeah, just a second. Next translation. Have we sent down to them an authority that sanctions the partners they are associating with him?
Okay. Mm-hmm. So just okay, maybe you're appealing to an authority, divine authority, which usually will be a scripture or the utterances of a prophet, which assert that what they're claiming by asserting Allah partner or claiming that they have been forgiven, like in their society. Show us then the next ayah, or maybe even if there's no next ayah to this issue, the reality is there. Show us where it is. Let me address that the case because appealing to a divine right or a divine authority means appealing to a prophet or someone who claimed to be sent by a prophet, by God or a prophet. So the Christian claim that, okay, Paul may have referred that, but Paul claims that he received that from Christ. Let us see what Christ himself, whatever narrated for him. There is no way, even one word, that he says, I will die on the cross or my life will be sacrificed for you. Nowhere at all. There's some school places which say dying for the people or something. Maybe I will be a martyr for you, not carrying your sin, nowhere there. And if someone's asking about eternal life, clearly, master or teacher, tell me how I can get eternal life. The answer was, obey the commandments. Which he's talking to a Jew that's in Palestine somewhere in Galilee or on the way to Beit al-Maqdis in some of his trip, alayhi salatu wasalam. Keep the commandments, obey the commandments. And they know what the commandments mean. Usually when they say the commandments mean at least these 10 in the tablets. Then you get eternal life. There's no way dying for anybody else. You have to obey them. You have to make your own destiny. Period, full stop. And the other obscure players will say someone dying for the many or something. It could be he sacrificed himself to save the many in dunya, to change the situation, not necessarily to carry their sins and prevent them from going to hell. No. And it is not his an utterance, some of alleged disciples saying that. But the clear utterance is mentioned, even in the books we have now, which we know it has been tampered and embellished. No attribution. That's what the one you claim he died in the cross for you say. That's the claim of Paul only, claiming that he being sent by Christ. When after he went ascended to heaven, coming to him in dreams and visions, which only Allah knows they are true if he has dreams, and if he has dreams, there is nothing which proves that he is absolutely with certainty met Christ. Maybe it's his deep subconscious, maybe it's satanic entities. We don't know what's it. We have no certification for that. Assuming we have certification for Isa, and we know what, and we trust the stories, because only stories, and there is no real Tawheed that he existed. Even some people doubting that. I think this is nonsense, but assuming that we have proved that, and we at least main stories that he's doing miracles, healing, and so on. So definitely he's having divine support. That one never said anything like that. So you don't have any divine authority if they come with that. If they don't come with that, then we are inventing from your own imagination. Where did you get that? There's no divine authority. So this ayah says, if you have divine authority that you claim, show us. Because they don't have. They will never show anything. Never ever. In all eternity, they will not be able, because there's none. It doesn't exist. It cannot exist. Not only it doesn't exist in reality, nowhere, it cannot be there. Because necessity reason dictate for that, this is an impossibility. But this is more a deep philosophical approach. Okay, if you say that, bring that to me. And we'll see. I will tell you immediately from the text, there is some fabrication there. If you bring something like that, attribute to a prophet, I will show you who is the fabrication right away. Bring me any text. I will show you. There's a counter text. So one of them is true, another false. Why? Because we know from before, when we start from the necessity of reason and building step by step, that something like that cannot exist. Okay, carry on.
وإذا أذقنا الناس رحمة فرحوا بها وإن تصبهم سيئة بما قدمت أيديهم إذا هم يقنطون. And thus it is, when we let men taste our grace, they rejoice in it. But if evil befalls them as an outcome of what their own hands have wrought, lo, they lose all hope. Next translation. When we give people a taste of mercy, they rejoice. But if something bad happens to them because of their misdeeds, they immediately lose all hope.
Yeah, this is the best situation. Actually, all others, except the believer, or the true believer, but it's the best for the non-believer is this. Most will be even worse than that. They don't only lose all hope, they start accusing Allah of treating them unjustly. you treat it unjustly. That's the devil has worked a little bit, one step more before giving up the hope. One step, the devil will tell you, whatever the devil is, it's this entity or the evil structure, the shortcoming and the weakness in the structure of the universe will tell you, why you're giving up? You were wrong in the first place to hope in him, because he's bad, he's evil. He's created you to play with your games, to make an experiment. He's experimenting with you. He's enjoying your suffering. That's the satanic approach. He wants to oppress you, so you have to rebel to become free. I am the one. I am the one giving you the right of freedom. That's what the Satanists say. I am the example for you. I got oppressed. When I objected, I got chucked from heavens. I have been treated badly. So what do you expect from such an entity, from such a God, except mistreatment? And then it scales more and more and more, getting deeper in kufr stage by stage. So listen from that. This is what happens to humans, which they don't have a real iman. Real iman is a mixture of conviction. That's the structure of it. But the most important, knowledge. You have to have basic knowledge about Allah and His revelation. And this is delivered in Scripture, the basic knowledge about Allah's attributes, what He is necessary is, what He cannot be. Then there's no place to give up completely the hope. If you structure properly, if you think about qadar properly, and you see how bad is the catastrophe happening to Muslims by introducing jabr. Like, for example, in a speech of Muawiyah, he's telling the people, I fought to become dominant over you, to control you. And in any way, if Allah did not allow that to happen, it would not have happened. So put all the blame on Allah. So the people give the hope. Most Muslims swallowed down and accepted jabr in this way, sugar-coated with Allah's will and Allah's sovereignty. But this ultimately will lead to people becoming jabri, and then the jabri ultimately will end into Satanism and so on. But luckily, most people will not go all the way. They are not consistent, luckily. I think Ibn Taymiyyah narrates, or Ibn Qayyim narrates the story about people who were sitting in halaqah in Damascus, in the mosque of Damascus, and were discussing qadar and so on, and discussing what Iblis did to Adam and things like that. And they started criticizing Iblis, which failure he committed, which mistakes he committed. And then one sitting in the halaqah was silent. And one Jabari was like it. He said, people, why are you attacking Iblis? If I were there, I would tell Allah openly, you forced me to do that. I couldn't do otherwise. He's appealing to their theory of qadar. But they're starting shouting at him. A natural reaction. This could not be possibly the case. Tabbalak, dua on you. Instead of standing on the side of the Rahman, the merciful road, you're standing on the side of the devil. This is an emotional response. Because the correct rational response, but we will avoid it, to be not in conflict with the common aqidah, they say, will be saying, yeah, it seems to be our theory of jabr and divine knowledge that everything is written and known in eternity must be false. And definitely it's false according to the Quran. Nobody went all the way. Even the Razi, in his great size of mind and so on, the greatest mind in Islamic history, discussed various issues of qadar. And when he came to this point, he brought the argument of what's the name of the guy, Hisham al-Hakam, the one nicknamed by the Shia as Mu'min al-Taq, the believer, because he used to sit in a window and discuss with the people, confuse them. And the Sunni call him Shaitan al-Taq, the devil of the Shia. He brought a structural argument, say, if the result of action is known in eternity, then there is no way there will be a free will for humans at all. There will be no way for freedom for humans. Because if it is known, Allah's knowledge cannot turn suddenly to unknowledge. It will be not knowledge. But also, all divine acts later must be already decided at that time. But this will create internal contradiction, which is a bit deeper. But so Allah is not a free agent, so he's a dead, blind nature. Al-Razi offered the argument And what his answer was? He chickened out. He knew this argument is irrefutable. He said, that's in his Tafseer Kabir. Said, but we say, our answer, we say what the majority of the Ummah says. That's his answer. People run away from the conclusion of their, because they are not going to the Imam, to the real leader. What's the real leader? Quran. It will give you that clearly on the plate. Clearly, as we mentioned several times. It gives you clearly on a plate. But you have to read it and to appreciate it and to submit to it. Because the Quran is the necessity of reason even in this situation. And this is of a proof in the Quran. That is of divine origin. Because this depth of matters were not known at that time. It gives you on the table like nuts without a skin, ready to consume and enjoy. Just ponder about what I said many times. When Allah told Musa and Harun, go to Pharaoh and talk to him softly, maybe he will remember and become guided and become God-fearing. Maybe. In an expression of hopeful. All the scholars discuss and say, you see, you start with the kafir and the tyrant by a soft language. You don't attack them. This is a bad way of managing politics, a bad way to treat leader. Maybe, because stupid, that's the main issue. Look what's standing there. They never comment on that. See all tafsir. I don't think any Mufassir ever comment, in time past at least, commented on that. It means it was still possible that Pharaoh may be guided, maybe misguided. Still, it's open. It's not decided yet. It's not even known because it does not exist yet. It's unknowable by necessity. Doesn't undermine Allah's knowledge. The possibilities are there. He measures the possibilities, but no more. Or you say Allah knew that he would be misguided and end in hellfire as he ended, and misguidance and all this mess will happen in advance. But he chose to deceive Musa and Harun, sent them to an impossible message, an impossible enterprise, an impossible endeavor. So Allah is a deceiver. Choose you pick. The same with the ayah in Surah At-Tawbah. وَآخَرُونَ مُرْجَوْنَ لِأَمْرِ اللَّهِ إِمَّا يَتُوبُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَإِمَّا يُعَذِّبُهُمْ. And others are postponed to the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Either he punish them or he forgive them. Look at that. Postponed. It's not decided yet. That's the only one in history noticed there's a problem, is Qurtubi in his tafsir, and say this actually from human point of view, is not from a divine point of view. But Allah talking about himself, for God's sake. Whose point of view are talking about? And addressing us with the language we understand. So what he effectively says, from the point of view, Allah is already all in eternity happening, but he's not exposing that to us. But he could say, already decided, but I will tell you about the decision later. But it's clear, Murjawna. He doesn't say Murjawna. He said, Allah will tell you later what's there. Or even not reveal this ayah in the first place. At all. No need to mention the ayah. Which brings this dilemma. So what's there? From a divine point of view, or this is a clear situation in the future, which I said is not decided yet from my side. Murjawna li amrillah, to my command. Not to anybody's decision. Obviously, it may be based on Tawbah or not Tawbah. That's what is based on how the decision is made. That's not the issue. But the decision will be made later, not now. It's so obvious, like the daylight. And still we are grinding around that with all. The reason for that, for most Muslim scholars and so forth, and Ash'ari and so on, is that they are stuck. They're stuck in their blindness. Okay, this seems to confuse you. You cannot set it rationally. Is there someone who guides us to the right in this issue? Is there an imam we can follow? Yes, the imam is there. Quran is the imam. How do you know the Quran is imam? We know the Quran is superior and dominant and better than what has revealed to Musa. And Allah said, وَمِنْ قَبْلِهِ كِتَابُ مُوسَى إِمَامًا وَرَحْمًا. So if Kitab Musa is Imam Rahman, by necessity of reason, this better book, dominant book, must be a better Imam, a bigger leader, and a bigger mercy. But you left it behind back. You know, Allah says, I did all what I can do for you. You rejected, you put it in the back. And the messenger will complain, my Lord, my people have deserted the Quran. Make it a deserted area. يا رب إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. Most of us say it refers to Quraysh, the people. No, it refers to the whole people until Yawm al-Qiyamah who deserted the Quran, including the great scholars and so on. Yet you expect you want Allah to come and force you? No, it doesn't. Otherwise, we have another universe, not a testing universe. That was decided that the universe have this structure in the foundation of the world. That's the issue of qadar, different, but the issue of qada and future events and so on is another issue. That we discussed many times. I prefer to go back to open the people you have there in the book. You don't need to go to the Athenian philosophical academy to get there. You can do it there with a very complex, laborious way, not done by Plato. At the time, he was not in that stage. You need a lot of mathematics, philosophy, and so on, were developed until, let's say, until the 18th century, 19th century, when we got enough accumulated information and logical developments and criticism and counter-criticism until we can develop that from zero level necessity of reason without referring to a scripture. But even that process is extremely laborious and very difficult to go. We have some bit of it highlights in the section in the chapter 4 of the Book of Tawheed. Try to keep as easy going as possible there. But starting from reason, fundamental experience of oneself and the world around us, and going there step by step in a safe way. The ancient, when they went there, they went the wrong way. What the wrong way say? How the situation was in Azal? We don't know. Azal is something outside our reach of access of these and so on. How it is, what is all about? All we know is the end point in which time start with. That's all. What's its nature? It cannot be a time. It's the beginning of time. What's it? It is of time. What is it? We don't know. You don't start with the unknown. You start what's around me, and we go step by step until we reach the Azal. In a structured way, following the principles of mathematics, of limits, convergence and divergence, and so on, and prove that's not possible, this way is not possible, this way, but the only way is this, until all chains of causal effects end in a point. And what this point will be, is actually, it ends there by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the necessary existing being. Maybe it's permissible. I think it's permissible to say, no, from both points of view, that Al-Azal is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. The same way in Qiyas now, encouraged by the Hadith. The unbelievably miraculous Hadith when he says, it starts innocently, very simple, like actually etiquette or matter about how to talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This seems to issue even a relatively small issue of Sharia. When Allah say, يقول الله يؤذيني بأن يقول يا خيبة الدهر. The son of Adam hurts me when you see what a miserable time it is. Meaning the events are not to my liking. It's miserable. Okay, so you should not say that. This is hurting Allah. But why it's hurting? Now the miraculous part of the hadith come. In addition to other evidences show that the hadith or the single hadith can be regarded as qat'i for various reasons discussed in that place. The Book of Tawheed. يسب الدهر أو complain about that. وأنا الدهر, I am the passage of time. What's the meaning I am the passage of time? I think they are the simplest example of a passage of time, how we have the concept of time, is that day and night follow in certain sequence. So we have order of sequence. There's a certain order, which we call the time, or perceive a time, or we measure with clocks and call it previous time, early time, further time. أقلب الليل والنهار between day and night by my command. That's the meaning I am الدهر. not the same being, because maybe Dahr is just something conceptual, is not really an independent entity. But metaphorically, Allah is the Dahr because He is the maintainer. He kicks all the events one after one, starting with the fundamental one in the creation of the initial universe, which people identify as the Big Bang. I don't identify with the Big Bang or anything, but there's a fundamental point. Before that, there's nothing except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the first in everything. You come by reason and the Quran together and the Hadith. You get even a miraculous Hadith. Yes, it's only from Abu Hurairah every single way, and even from a suspect guy like Abu Hurairah, because sits with Ka'b al-Ahbar and so on. At that time, nobody in the world has such concepts. And there's nowhere in the old scripture. So it could not be from Ka'b al-Ahbar. It's from somebody else? No. It's from Abu Hurairah, even worse. Hurairah is coming from the mountains of Ghamid and Zahran. They are even more ignorant than Ka'b al-Ahbar and the books of the Jews and Christians. So where it comes? Most likely from the Prophet. Is it from Muhammad himself? Can't be. A literate man in Mecca all his life either was a shepherd or doing business and doing trades in behalf of his wife. That's all what we know about him. Couldn't be reaching that level of sophistication. So here must be from Wahi. Now we have to analyze further and exclude that Wahi from Shaitan. This required to define what's Shaitan. That's answering to push the grandfather who claimed Muhammad is a prophet, but the prophet of Shaitan. Okay, we exclude all of that. So from her he received that. Of the eternal necessity existing. That hadith alone is a very strong evidence of prophethood, provided you do the job before of thinking correctly and referring to the Quran. So that's synchronized well with the Quran. I don't want to turn that into a qadar discussion again, and qada and divine foreknowledge and all the issues with that which are deep. But if you take the Quran, it will guide you, it will take your hand to the beginning of the way. Then any other wrong imagination and say knowledge extended and so on will be resolved immediately. In addition to the other hadith. When they came asked, what's the beginning of all this affair? What is this? How it's beginning? It must have a beginning, or it doesn't have a beginning. We came to ask you about the beginning of these things. People from Yemen, obviously sophisticated people who interacted with Jews, interacted with Persian. There's a relatively sophisticated culture. That's from people of Yemen. You don't expect some from Najd and so on at that time. Yeah, these people are relatively backward to that. Such a question will never come in their mind. The Messenger of Allah by Wahi told them, yeah, there's a beginning. كان الله ولم يكن شيء قبله. And the narration معه, and the narration عنده. Allah exists. There was nothing before him. That's the only way to express in Arabic. Meaning, it's impossible that anything existed before. No time, nothing, absolutely nothing. That's an impossibility. قبله, before Azal, before the beginning, it's an impossibility. That's a very deep issue. Need to be expanded clearly. But he gives it a simplest language. Simple Bedouin, oh yeah, nothing before him. He doesn't think further. He will not say no time before him. He's not so sophisticated, but no entity, nothing is before him. On the other narration, with him or at him, absolutely alone, absolutely lonely. And this is the absolute beginning. Then he wrote everything, the destination of the universe, meaning the structure of the universe. He shows a certain universe in our sophisticated language. At the same time, according to the Quran and the Hadith, unless they have been tampered with, is that at that time his throne was on the water. But nothing is with him. What is the throne and the water? That's another issue I'm not discussing today. Continue next ayat. That's when you give your guidance to the Quran, not to your imagination and what Ibn Taymiyyah said or my grandmother said or Muhammad al-Massari said. No. Give leadership to the Quran. But it is not enough to look to one ayah. All the ayahs must be put together. Why? Because the Quran tells you clearly, وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجْدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. If it was from another source than Allah, because Allah is absolute truth, only truth can come from him, there would be contradiction and things which are irreconcilable. This dictates that you get all the Quran as we have it in our hand. Always after establishing by back tracing until the time of Prophet and parchment and all of these things, that's what done. This came from Muhammad. After Muhammad, where it goes, it claims it goes from up there. That needs also that certain evidence. But internally, you can get that because no book from any human will not have a discrepancy in one point or another. So, especially a book with that size, with 6,000 ayahs, and maybe how many words in the average, maybe hundreds of thousands of words and millions of letters. There's no way there must be some discrepancy there. There's no way it happened. But you have to get all the Quran from the Ba of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in front of the Fatiha or the beginning of the Quran to the scene at the end of the Nas. All of that has to be cross-synchronized. If you find any divergence, throw it away. It is not from Allah. There's none. So if you believe it's none from Allah, then to understand it properly and deduct wisdom and knowledge from it, you have to synchronize it yourself also. But the issue you are concerned about is enough. When we are synchronized the issues of qadar and mashi'a, لو شاء الله ما كذا سوء, etc. And in another place, he says, attribute to their mashi'a completely as if Allah is absent. And in another one, it gives you a hint. ما تشاءون إلا يشاء الله. No, getting in the light. For this, would get anywhere things related to mashi'a, there will be maybe total, maybe 40, 50 ayahs. We don't need, if they're discussing qadar and mashi'a and divine knowledge, we don't know to go to read the ayahs about talaq. They seem to be far away. But when we want to find if it is contradictory or not contradictory in any sense, then we have to get also the ayah of talaq in that context. But we don't need it. We establish that it's from there. If it's so, then it has no contradiction. But it mentions qadar in various colors in various directions, here and there and there, and other stories connected. We should read them carefully. You open your eyes and clear your mind from this rubbish, which you get from scholars from this and that. And if you put all of them together, the picture will be enlightened in your mind. Which is enlightened in your mind. And all answers are there. Even the beginning of this surah, I discussed it casually. The surah hints to an important point related also to the future events and the knowledge. When say about that the room will be victorious and so on, he says, Wa'd Allah, the promise of Allah, Allah will never break his promise. It hints that if Allah literally thinks the development is according to internal dynamic and the structure now, all the lines will go, maybe will never go to a resurrection of the Roman power and going back. But Allah said, I promise I will force the events to go such way. Wa'd. And his wa'd will never fail by necessity of reason. So we can call that if he did not promise and make the promise to please the believer and announce in the Quran, it would have developed exactly like the mushrik thought. You are mistaken. They are so smashed they will never recover. Yeah, according to all conditions now, but now even deeper from Allah Ta'ala, it really is so. The divine promise will force it in this way. He will act to force it in this way because he promised it. Not because it would have developed by necessity and he knew the developments and the result. No. If you want to tell, that will be a correct interpretation. So we can add that to the issue also of qadar as a secondary, not a fundamental one, because it may be interpreted various ways. But I think this is the only reasonable interpretation with all the picture of future knowledge and so on. It's a divine promise. If you see that, then you understand the issue of tabbat yada abi lahabi wa tab. Before revelation, he still had choices. After that, Allah struck him as a punishment he deserved and just made him essentially for all practical purposes concerning repentance as if he died. Because if you die, no repentance anymore possible. That's gone. But he's alive and going back forth, yeah. And the Quraysh are around, they could do their trickery and embarrass the Prophet. With the Savior said, don't worry about all of these. I will make them unable to think this way by stepping possibly miraculously behind the sea in such a way that nobody noticed, and he will never be able to recover. He is essentially dead. He, if you use the usual language of poison, he's spiritually dead. So there's nothing there. And the one who said, if this surah, the one who attacking those who say the Quran is written as it's now in eternity, if this Quran is the Lawh al-Mahfuz, that's a mistake. It's in the Lawh al-Mahfuz with the correct sense. not the Lawh Mahfuz, which means that was written like certain creation. That's not the Mahfuz. That's something else. But the people confuse both. Meaning written before time, then there's no hujjah, no argument Allah can bring a president into creation Yawm al-Qiyamah. They can argue and defeat him. That's already written eternity back before we are created. We could not do otherwise. It's impossible to do otherwise. It's impossible to do otherwise. And Allah is defeated in argument. It can't be. Because it's impossible. By the system of reason that Allah can be defeated in any argument. Impossible. So take your pick. Anyway, I think the issue of Qadr should be discussed slowly and in more length, because it's many people it became an emotional issue. And for many people, it became a very nice pin of Juha. You know the pin of Juha? The story of the pin of Juha? Juha, it's obviously a joke. It didn't happen. He sold the house, but except one nail inside the house. I have the right to hang my things there. Oh, the buyer was stupid or simple minded. They agreed. Obviously, such a sale is obviously invalid. There's a contradiction there, but in the middle of that. And then after the sale is completed, Juha took the money and so on. Juha, a few weeks, Juha is intelligent enough to do it. A few weeks or months he came with things, say, well, knock the doors now. I want to use my nail. But I sold the house. Look at the contract. Except I have the right to hang some clothes in by. I'm just hanging the clothes. And he kept doing it more frequently until the man said, remove that. I said, no, I'm insisting on this right. It cannot be removed away. Until the poor man left the house, I take the house and went, losing his money and everything. So it took Qadr as a nail of Juha. Everything, it happened, is written in eternity, but I'm not responsible. You see where the catastrophe come in every respect. By forsaking the book of Allah and following this philosophy and this something, or started with something of school, like dividing time in small portions and so on, and claiming it is infinitely long on both sides, all these nonsense. Or following Ibn Taymiyyah, there are events which have no beginning as well, because it doesn't look like infinite regress. It is infinite regress. And all these things come from this catastrophe. But you don't need to go, I say, to a philosophical class. Just say, I'm a simple man. Text of Quran here. We have the evidence for Hud, various evidences, even evidences which can prove today were not available in time past, like the Qibla of Sana'a, the Qibla of Masjid al-Nabawi, the Qibla of this, the Qibla of this, and also the coming of the Mongols, and also the volcanic eruption in Harrat Rahat in 675, and so on. I have that. This is enough for me as an evidence. So this is from Allah. There's no doubt about it. I will follow that. Leave your philosophy, philosophers until Yawm al-Qiyamah. I cannot rely on a fallible source and leave the infallible source. Bye-bye. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Okay. I should stop here now. I think I bother the people very much for that. Let's go to the next slide.
next slide. ولم يروا أن الله يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يؤمنون. Are they then not aware that it is God who grants abundant sustenance or gives it in scant measure unto whomever he wills? In this, behold, there are messages indeed for people who will believe.
Yeah.
Next
you see
translation. Sorry,
yeah,
next translation.
Yeah.
Do they not see that God gives abundantly or sparingly to whomever he pleases? In that, truly, there are signs for those who believe.
Yeah. Which shows that this system is so that within this system, Allah is fully free and capable of giving. All your assumption about why this one is having abundance, this one is hard industry, is this and so on. The capitalists are so that's because they hard work and they use their brain, they use their body. But that's not true. Some of them, at least some cases, is coming through inheritance, but absolutely no doing of the guy. And that the person addressing the current billionaire inherited wealth from his father. He has absolutely no choice to choose these parents. That's absolutely the choice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have to think about that. The wealth must be coming from the one who makes the universal shows. What the reason for that is the testing and so on. That's you wait for the scripture to explain. But just scanning was going on. Every claim that having wealth and expansion is because of industrial work, because of intelligence, because of this and so on. It's just simply nonsensical. It's just simply nonsensical. Absolutely nonsensical. It's come from work, it comes just obviously by what you look at it at first sight, it looks like absolutely accidental. For you, but it's not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to His will. The same being scant receiving a little bit scant and average. Most of it due to external condition, not because he's lazy. No. Plenty of it because he's lazy. He could have done better if he acted according to certain situation. But in many situations, it is not. It's absolutely not. So that should be attractive to think, what's the structure of the universe? What's going on? How things like that happen? How my philosophy of capitalism or socialism and so on is having a weakness or a problem there. And they will come closer that this is all human presetting and assumption within the limitation by it. Maybe it's condemnable as a study and so on, but we have to go deeper. We have to go deeper. And if you go deeper, it looks arbitrary, but it cannot be arbitrary. We have a system that is working in most time. Why not here? What's going on? Because it's a testing universe, the way established by Allah, the foundation of the world. And this part of the testing process. Having plenty of wealth is not necessarily your own good. It may be your own calamity and catastrophe. If you don't recognize this from Allah, and that you are just got it by just sheer divine gift to test you. So the rich one is tested with his richness. It's not rewarding for anything. Maybe part of it, but not all of it. And even if it's a reward, but also the warning. Open your eyes as long as you're alive. If you don't thank for this road appropriately by spending the way I want, you will be dumb. You will be checked out. And the same with one with tight. It's from me, a testing for you, with no bad doing of yourself. So what to do it? Work a correct way, using the tools of the universe. But remember, I'm the control of the universe. So be patient because of my cause to appease me. Don't attribute to me any ill attributes that Allah is unjust. Don't let the devil play with you. And if you become rich, then remember you have poor and go to your obligation. Otherwise, the richness will be gone. Both are tested. And it may turn Yawm al-Qiyamah, the one who is now restricted income and poverty, if he's a believer, he may get away with less accounting. And there are various hadith. One of them is that we have to study that 20 obviously too, because it's a matter of Aqidah. But I will not add it. I will say there's footnotes of Aqidah that the poor people will be called for accounting. And they say, accounting for what? We don't have any money to do with anything in the dunya. So Allah tells the angels, oh, they are right. Let them go to paradise. They go 500 years before the rich people. So the account goes for thousands of years, the process. While the rich are sweating and so on. This is, it could be like that at face, or it could be metaphorical. That being poor does not mean being poor is a good situation. Allah say the same time, نعم المال الصالح العبد الصالح. What's a grace and benefit for the pious one, the righteous one? The good money. But not the bad money, which you gain by selling drugs, by usurping power, by attacking other nations and taking their wealth. That's not good money. This is a catastrophe in Yawm al-Qiyamah. So it's a very complex issue. But seeing the reality, you say, what does it mean? That's the ayah to remember in the foundation of the fundamental decision. This is a testing universe. That's a testing universe. And then you wake to the reality, and then you start testing yourself, accounting yourself. And then you have the best condition to be saved. Otherwise, you'll never be saved. You will end in the abyss of fire. Either become a Satanist or atheist or something like that. Or a capitalist A genuine capitalist, you think this managed by my own arm strength, like a Qarun, will end in a catastrophe. Doesn't need to do like the Qarun. That was just to give an example of Bani Israel to wake up from dreams of power and so on. And that's miraculous, that situation. Otherwise, you don't see it. You see it in the whole nation regarding that. Look at America now. The model they take about any model of wealth and goodness and so on. They mention these billionaires, most of them are the filthiest of the filth, or at least atheist. Like, what's the name of the guy who was the richest in America? What's his name? Not
Warren Buffett, Elon Musk.
Warren Buffett is. But is not known if he's atheist or not. But he's a filthy, racist, and enemy of Islam. Possibly he's an atheist. We don't know. But Warren Buffett is clearly declared to be an atheist. There's no doubt about that. Regarded. Even atheists use him as an example for the successful atheist. As if success is connected to being atheist or not. What successful means for them, having more money, having billions. So think about this. That's the way to look at the ayah. What is the science buried in that? It is a little bit deeper, obviously, than the other one. Is that this is a testing universe. Don't be fooled by either one. Especially by being restricted in income. It made the ultimate conclusion is in the average is the most desirable situation. While the injunction is try to accumulate wealth, to become financially independent, so you are not slave to anybody, you are slave only to Allah, but only if you recognize all wealth is coming from Him. And nothing is because of your power. Because your power and your intelligence, where did it come? From nothingness. Originally, from Allah. You said, okay, we have evolution. Okay. Who kickstarted the evolution? Your grandmother? Allah. No, it's this universe structure. But if you go back until the Big Bang, how the universe started? Did it start itself? It's impossible. Did you start it? That's impossible. Who started then? Then you have the absolute start. All goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't think it's because of your muscle power or brain power. No. If you see that, then you become a believer and then you're on the right path. If you don't see it, you are in trouble. Possibly ending into the abyss. So next ayah.
فأت ذلك القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل ذلك خير للذين يريدون وجه الله وأولئك هم المفلحون. First translation. Hence, give his due to the near of kin, as well as to the needy and the wayfarer. That is best for all who seek God's countenance. For it is they that shall attain to a happy state. Next translation. So give relatives their due, as well as the disabled and the traveler. That is best for those who seek the pleasure of God. It is they who will prosper.
Notice how this ayah followed the previous one. So hence, because of that, if you have put that and achieve that, then it will never come in your mind. If you have seen this reality, at least in, let's say, skeleton structure. You don't expect from the people to go so deep like I did, and some people can go even deeper. Just a skeleton. All is from Allah and all is a testing. Then revelation comes and tell you, do this and do this and this. You establish that he's a prophet, that's not a matter of dispute. It should never come in your mind not to comply the commands to give the next of kin, etc., because the devil will whisper to your ear, listen, how do you give these lazy bums? That's what will come to your mind. Well, I'm supposed to give the lazy bums. Meaning you did not comprehend what you initially agreed upon. Or you don't see it. If you don't see it clearly, they are not a believer. And the ayah is clear. But for those who seek the face of Allah, so they have come to that conclusion. So give that, don't discuss that he is rich or not. For example, there's an obligation to the next of kin, for example, has nothing to do with richness. And there is the issue of orphans, has not to be, you cannot say, oh, the next of kin neglected them. I'm not responsible. That's not the way it works. It has to be worked more properly. Let's see what the Sharia injunctions and the limitations, etc. That's the way to go. There's no other way to go. And they say, وَأَعْطِ ذَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ. Give the next of kin their right, and wayfarer, etc., etc., as described by Sharia, not by your imagination. Not by your imagination. Correctly. Let me give an example. A few examples. That's very interesting because it connects. We know that many bigger and so on, maybe she think they are accumulating a wealth at the side. That's well known. Even the Messenger of Allah is reported to have said, were it not for that the people asking or begging, many of them are liars, it would have been prohibited to deny even one who asks, even if he comes on a horse. Should not take any circumstances. But we know they lie. So how to treat the situation with lies and so on? With fiction and so on? Let's assume someone, you see now, especially in London, someone begging and so on, and claiming to be hungry. You have the right to be suspicious that these guys are drug addicts or drinkers, especially if he smells so humble. Yeah? Yeah, everyone agrees. But he says he's hungry. He may be lying. So what to do? Tell him, brother, or whatever, kindly, come with me to the next restaurant. I'll buy you a sandwich. Then you refuted all these things. You gave him a sandwich, which only will treat his hunger. He claims to be hungry. And blocked him from going to buy drugs or alcohol. That's all what you do. You don't need to become a police or secret police digging his life and watching where he's going and accumulating money. You don't need. You're not even allowed to do that. And if you cannot overcome suspicion, or there's no shop nearby or anything like that, which is very unlikely because they're usually at station, a place where you have a McDonald's, you have this, you have a halal shop, you have sandwiches and so on. If that's the situation, very simple. Just say politely, sorry, I don't have money with me now, or something like that. Nicely, not nasty, in a rebuking tone. And go. Then you have complied with divine command. If you have good founded suspicion, you have a way out. You still give for the hungry. Okay? You cannot take escape of it. Then let the devil take your mind. Another example is a funny story about the sadaqah which you keep hidden. A man of Bani Israel, as Allah reported, he accumulated some wealth, say, now I'll do a sadaqah because he had that sadaqah which nobody knows, that metaphorically the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing, is the best sadaqah and the one safe from any show off and so on. So the reward is full. So he said, the best thing, I will go at night, small pack of, well, at the time they have only coins of silver or gold. I don't know what was common in Bani Israel. I think it was gold also. And went to a corner. He saw a woman which is covered and so on. And it seems to be she had begging or something like that. Oh, this woman may have children. That's the way a believer usually thinks about the other. Only good things until he has evidence or otherwise. And she at night and so on, maybe begging. That's not a situation can be tolerated. But I want to give it, and my left hand does not know what that means. I give it in secrecy. So he went, put her there in her lab, or she's sitting in somewhere with veil. I think that she looks right, and put that in her lab, and run away. Next day, the whole city is talking about a man who gave a prostitute money for free, did not even take any action because of that. Everyone is laughing about this idiot, according to their point of view. Now, someone say a woman who is veiled is usually questionable in Bani Israel that she is a prostitute, but that's not the only way to veil. Sometimes the nobility and the high-ranking woman do veil themselves. Actually, veil was otherwise regarded as suspicious. The same by the Arabs, but I'm not going to the issue of veil and showing the face and refuting the Salafi and so on. But he started thinking she must be from the nobility. And because the nobility do not go begging at day, so she's doing it at night. She made the best possible assumption. And that's the way human beings should be in the first interaction. Only if you have really evidences pointing to the negativity. Then he said, he was very distressed and said, is that what the end of my sadaqah? That's really a calamity. And he was complaining to Allah, how come this happened to me? Few days later, he sees a vision. He decided to overcome his hesitation and so on, and go again, say, I will avoid any woman now. Be cautious about all women, especially bad women. So he found a man who looks like standing next to a house. Oh, this must be begging at night. He must be a respectable person, but he's begging at night. That's the conclusion. If someone is standing there and looking as if looking for help, and run away. Next day, the whole city is, the whole village is laughing about a thief who was watching for a house, waiting for the time the people sleep so he can go and steal, receiving money for free. So he's upset. Say this, let me try another try, avoiding any man standing there in a suspicious way, or any woman, because we concluded they are more probable to be prostitutes than nobility. And the same here, if you see a man who is not like this, but walking straight and reasonably clothed, that may be someone who's needy. The man was waiting, maybe he waiting for his carriage to come. He's a rich man. And his servant and so on was going to get the horse carriage. We don't know the circumstances. Even the hadith has mentioned, he felt for the second that this man is in need, not knowing he's a rich man waiting for him. So he ran away. Before the man even said, what is this? Oh, he ran away. And then next day, everyone is laughing in the city that a rich man waiting for his carriage or for his friends to join him, got money dump in his pocket, and someone who gave the money ran away. We must have an idiot in this town. So he said, that's it. No more that. No more secret charity, no more charity anymore. And nobody can be trusted in the world. Now, this is an extreme example. After a few days, he was visited in the dream by an angel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware about what you did and how upset you are. And he let it go for 3 times. Don't worry. Allah allows you in His wisdom to go for the following reason. First of all, your charity with that intention fell in the hand of Allah and He's growing it for you. This is done and forgotten. Until Yawm al-Qiyamah, it keeps growing. It reaches its destination, which you intended. That it reaches a prostitute, allow that to happen. It has a great wisdom. Maybe this woman will feel ashamed of herself. I'm selling my body for money, and this man who seemed to be rich, who gave that for free, just for sake of Allah, thinking I'm in need. How it is not possible that I will overcome my loneliness and loss of self-dignity and start really doing something, even any other work on homes, sweeping the floors, working other works, maybe being a shepherd is maybe more honorable than that. It's hard work, but I can't do it. Maybe I will be able to arrange that. So she may repent. The door of repentance is still open for her. For that specific woman, it is not known yet if they repent or not. And for the thief, he may be seeing shocked by this action and start thinking about himself. How come that I'm watching for a house and try to steal the people's money, avoiding work, and someone who worked hard, most likely, and got that money is giving it to me for free because he thinks I'm in need. Shame on myself. And he repents. And the same with the rich man. So what is wisdom of the rich man? You gave by accident. The wisdom is that, and part of it, obviously, the reward isn't already recorded for him because his intention is to get the divine reward and kept it as secret as possible. The reward is there. So that's not the issue. The issue is that this rich man may be one who is stingy, never gives charity. He would feel ashamed of himself. Someone thinking, I'm in need casually, gave. And I'm not giving to the one really in need. I know that they are there. I know their houses and their places. So he may repent and become charitable. So that's divine wisdom. You don't know. But your charity, don't worry about your charity. It reaches its place. It's in Allah's hand. It's not in the people's hand. It's in Allah's hands. And Allah will grow it until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So the man was having, but obviously he got a lesson that you, even if you wanted to hide it, you should do a little bit of reasonable level of scrutiny. But if you even don't need it, do it, that means, does not mean that you are idiot. It means that you are too gullible. You should be a little bit more scrutinizing, maybe. But anyway, it's not the way to go. They say, anyone asking for charity, he may be a thief. He may be this one may be a prostitute. This one is like that. This one is like that. No, we are in times of prostitutes will not pretend. They will tell you guys, I have business for you. It's clear. Luckily, consider prostitutes. Now they use other means, cheaper. One of the most is that near any train station, they claim being cut from the way and they have no money to go back. And the solution for that is as simple as the one he claimed to be hungry. If you're doubting that he'll go around the corner and buy drugs, yeah, that's a good assumption in that place, especially at King's Cross here in London. No problem, brother. Come with me. I'll buy you the ticket. You have to be. Maybe you don't have enough amount. No, sorry, I cannot help you. You go in a gentle and brotherly language as a human being. Otherwise, take him. Say, how much you short this one? No, come. Even you could embarrass him a little bit, but I wouldn't even advise that. I would do the other way. Come with me to the ticket office. I will not ask him what he has to check if the balance is true. That is no need to go that extreme. But you can do it. It's legitimate. The other one is better. Ticket to the train. The next time is 1 hour. Buy a ticket for that specific train and let him go. Because usually he will be in the outskirts and so not far away. And then that ticket is usually will be, does not mean that he will not be able to go and sell the ticket to someone else for the same train, because usually tickets for the trains are not by name, not excluded for a certain person, but for a certain train to make it more tight. They will find someone who buy in emergency and so on. And especially if that time is a cheap time for other people, he may stay there and intercept someone who's coming for a ticket. That may be happening. That's beyond your reach, beyond your knowledge. So all in all, the way to say, I'm not going this guy because he's lazy, this is a drug addict, but just on presumption, is not the way to go. And always think, this may be Allah is bringing that a test on my way. Maybe this is an opportunity should I catch. I should not leave. And sometimes there'll be an opportunity, something bigger than giving a food and so on, something bigger. Maybe the opportunity will get you in paradise. And lead to forgiveness. This will be something bigger in the human perception. But maybe giving a food someone who's about to die is as big in the eyes of Allah as you may imagine. So that's it. Should they? Since you knew this whole thing is a testing universe, don't think that you are free of the obligation. That's also answered the mushrikeen. The mushrikeen said, are you amazed about Muhammad? And they came from another stage, from Jabari point of view. They said, and they respond, the Quran mentioned, they could say, you are asking to feed the one who hungry for whatever reason. Are you asking to feed some people? That's now referring to qadar from a twisted way, al-qada. If Allah willed, he will. If Allah wished, he would have fed them. But Allah wished is happy with the situation that they are poor and they are hungry. So why is supposed to be interfered with Allah Mashiach? Now we refer the qiyar in the upside down way. In this I tell them, yes, in the foundational world it was a testing universe, but in this situation, you don't know what Allah will or did not will, nor you allowed to refer that. What you allow is to that the absolute sovereign is worth your obedience, and He commanded this, you comply with it. You have no liberty to argue with Allah's Mashiach, or even how the world is founded. You have to accept that and surrender to with absolute terms, how the world is initially created. That's a completely different issue. But now we are commanded, here and today, we are commanded to comply with that. And these for these people, it's a right. Allah made it a right for them, and it has to be fulfilled. And He will ask about that as their right and His right of command, also both. Until the rights of all creation has been settled, then remain only the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that He is at liberty to administer punishment or not. But for the creation, there is not. I gave them the haqq, they will exact their haqq. There is no escape from that. I will compensate for it, however, to them. No difference between mu'min, kafir, whatever. That's it. That's a haqqa given. Nobody is going to argue about that Yawm al-Qiyamah. That has to be settled. Unless you settle it in the appropriate way, you'll be caught for that Yawm al-Qiyamah. After finishing with that, then the other issues between you and Allah, purely and so on, will be discussed and accounted. And then this is that the one who Allah can forgive all of it without caring anything, but not for the creation between themselves. So you have to recognize that Allah can give haqq to certain, so the all creation, some creation, and this haqq as a giving, Allah will never take away what He has given. He's obliged Himself by the giving that's for all eternities. That haqq must be fulfilled. Obligation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what means it's a haqq for them. As the qurba haqq is due right. Where this due right came? From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. It's a bit long, but I think it's an important point. How this follow the other one. So nobody should come with this deep insight in the reality of the universe and this testing universe and then violate it by it and think he has the right even to discuss if they have haqq or no haqq and they are lazy or no lazy. This is not a matter of discussion. Even if their laziness led to do that way, does not negate their haqq once applied to their current condition as it is, even if they're guilty for the current condition. The accounting and settling is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see what the commandment of Sharia comes to you, then you have to comply with that as it is. Good. Next slide.
وما آتيتم من ربا ليربو في أموال الناس فلا يربو عند الله وما آتيتم من زكاة تريدون وجه الله فأولئك هم المضعفون. And remember, whatever you may give out in usury, so that it might increase through others people's possession, will bring you no increase in the sight of God, whereas all that you give out in charity, seeking God's countenance, will be blessed by Him. For it is they who seek His countenance that shall have their recompense multiplied. Next translation. And remember, when you lend in usury, claiming to increase it from people's wealth, will not increase in God's sight. But what you give in purifying alms, seeking God's approval, will multiply its rewards.
Okay, so this is the first ayah hinting riba. Showing that's undesirable. It's only the undesirability. It's not the stage yet to prohibit it. You need a state to start the prohibition, then be remaining point for states and individual person within their power until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And it's even one of the strongest prohibition, one of the destructive sins. And he hints also the mudha'afa and so on. So whatever you give, obviously riba is well defined. People know what it is. Giving a loan, money, to be retained as it is capital, that will be charitable loan. So, and Allah declared charitable loan to be a category of zakah. But there's the second part of that. First one, that's the riba. Riba will increase. Riba yarbu increase. Obviously referring to giving as a loan. Otherwise, how you increase your wealth this way, except by after either you agree on an interest at the beginning, or you say you give it back after a year. Usually there's a basic interest agreed in the beginning, and by every delay the interest may be even the interest itself, the what they call the fruit of interest increases, or the interest, but it becomes multiplied. It's added to the capital and multiplied. The usual geometric series and so on. That's well known. This accounting of that mathematics is well known. That's not an issue. And the mathematical equations are well known, and you can calculate to infinity and so on. That's all known. You can study in any accounting system. Let's say if you give loans in the contract, making contractual obligation for the other side to pay you more when the loan is retained, don't think that this increase really is a real increase in Allah's side. It may increase in the counting of, but it doesn't increase in the barakah or the reward of al-Qiyamah. And it's not a charitable act. The moment an interest is specified, it ceases to be a charitable act And later on, the revelation came to make that absolutely prohibited and catastrophically prohibited for the one who does it, and added to further flavors of prohibited things. But let's stick to this point first. But what you give a loan to just help the others overcome crisis or something like that, with the provision that it should be returned to you, capital as it is exactly, then but with intention to please Allah, because you know this is charitable. You could have charged interest. In principle, you could have. Because someone come to you, say, sorry, I can't give you money just like that out of love and affection. You have to give me interest. What they call it in the West now, this is the rental of the money. It's like rent. I can't give you my house without taking a rent for it. This obviously, this case is fallacy. It's not true. If you talk about gold and silver, it is not true. But in this independent from whatever philosophical justification they make for riba, they try to make a justification because it was 3-4 centuries back, or 4-5 centuries, were completely prohibited. Only the Jews were doing it. And was the one reason of their condemnation in the Christian society. But later, they recognized that kings need money for their wars and so on, and they started lending, with the Rothschild starting with the Bank of England, and all these things. You can study history. And then they have to get obviously scholars and philosophers to justify this filth. This way, the vicious capitalism of nowadays started coming forward. But if you give a loan, not contractually oblige the other side to give you more than he has taken, and you do that for the sake of Allah. Someone do it because, like, you go to Warren Buffett and give you an interest-free loan. He'll never do that. But assume that he's an atheist. He's not doing for the sake of Allah. He thinks it's a philanthropic act. It's a humanitarian act or something like that. Then in Yawm al-Qiyamah, he can say, I give that for your sake. So, okay. It gives make you feel good about yourself. You got the good feeling. What do you expect from me to give you? So don't come somebody who say, these are good people. No, it's not good in the sense which Allah has defined goodness, which will help you on Al-Qiyamah. But that's a secondary issue. These are the one who, their money which they return back, Allah will multiply it, both in really barakah will be there. This is something metaphysical. And the other one which is not metaphysical, because usually it's come barakah in your life, in your dealing and so on. People will love you and will come to you and so on. Even people will try to go to the level of even abuse, things like that. Yeah, it can happen. But it gives the reward for like you give, like in the hadith of Jibreel. It's a rare hadith. I have to check it where it is. I read it once in the Tafseer ibn Kathir in one issue. He says that Jibreel told the Messenger of Allah, said, if you give 10 dirham or 10 dinar as a charity, you get 10 rewards, or 10 items, or 10 measures of reward, 10 hasana. In certain measure, Allah Ta'ala knows what it is. But you give 10 dinar as a loan to be returned back, you get 15 hasana. So Allah was surprised. How come this you get more reward? Jibreel said, because the one who received the money back, will be encouraged in receiving back. And usually if the system is so tuned that the receiving back is well established, the ideal situation, the typical situation, then he will be giving it to others, and the other will benefit. And also the one receives will not just consume it. He will try to invest and get something out of it more, so he can cover his needs, immediate needs, which forced him to ask or motivate him to have a loan, but he will use it for possibly part of it for investment, tighten the belt, work a little bit hard, so they develop wealth and return the money to the man. So the man got his money back, and the one who received it developed more wealth, encouraged to do more work, to be more frugal, tighten the belt, all of these things. This benefits everyone. While the one you give it to him with the pure charity may become lazy. You encourage, okay, I can't consume. In the future, I find charitable you to give me. Become more complacent, more lazy. And that's the reason. So that's the reason the one who gave 10 dinar for loan received 15 hasana. Because more beneficial for him, because of hasanat, and more beneficial for the recipient. They become more hardworking, more concerned about money, more growing money instead of just consuming it. We do not get in the mentality of just being consuming without producing. They become more producer because he has to retain the money, has to work for it. While if it's received for charity, I can consume it. Maybe tomorrow there'll be a charitable man, tomorrow Saturday, and so on. It encourages laziness. While charitable loans without that loans with interest, encourage more work and investment and creating more wealth. So you see the logic of these things. But this is only for the people who believe in the Allah and Day of Judgment. If you go to a capitalist, they say, nonsense. There's no way I'm going to give my money without rent. That's it. And he gives you this fallacy argument about rental house. My dear friend, rental house, you give your house for the people. They have free enjoyment, obviously with a contractual obligation and so on, to keep it and so on. So they're benefiting they have a real benefit from themselves. They can't stay under the house and so on, and cover themselves at least with the cold of the winter and the hot of the summer and so on, have protection from attacks by locking the doors. There's a real benefit from the rent, from the house. They extract it. And this is what really the rent is. The rent is not for the house value. The rent is, otherwise it will be a sales contract, not a rental contract. The rent is for the benefit of the house. You take the benefit at the time, that's completely different. But when I give someone my dinar, the gold pieces, he cannot eat it, he cannot sleep under it, it's nothing. He has to use it for other things. And then either consume it or work hard to retain it, plus interest. So you're getting people's work for essentially for free. Forcing them to pay it for you because you have a usury contract. And the legal system, the capitalist legal system or the kafir system, will protect usury. Actually, the capitalist system since 300 years encourages usury because there are certain exceptions for interest payment. There is certain deduction in taxes and so on. It is all over the place encouraging to go into debt. Going to debt is encouraged in the system, the current system, capitalist system. The whole economy is tuned about going into debt, which in the long cycle of things need to that the currency, which is usually a fake currency, that is not done by gold. It was all done the gold time passed, but it produced then the fake currency at the beginning was covered by gold, and then later it became free and became just creative. That the currency which the people use to value things become really valueless, and more less because there are more debts to be paid in the future. Everything is shifted to the next generation. So the currency loses its value, a necessity, because the real economy will extract from that the things to be paid in the future. But instead of the future work, instead helping the future work to be done for that future people, this generation, and they prosper from that, you've taken their work nowadays, not only the work of the current one, the other ones in the future. You're stealing from the future. But people do not look this way. They do not look this way. We are not depriving the future with, we are getting them into decline. And that's the reason any usurious economy, when the usury is accumulated, it accumulates only for a certain number of years, unless certain other trickery are played, like 60 years cumulative cycle, and then the system has to crash. War has to be erupted. Something has to come to all these cancerous growth of the usury of the interest system has to be erased by catastrophe. General collapse of economy, mass bankruptcies. That's what they call not recession, even worse, depression. Massive. And with the current system, the next depression will be not only depression, it will be also inflation. Catastrophic type. Inflation in the time past when the currency was at least connected to gold in some sense or another, were usually with the declining prices at least, or stable prices. Here it's even worse. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, we saw that recent history with the subprime mortgages, where there's all these dodgy loans were packaged together as being. And
that's also that's to prevent that from happening. Selling debt is not permissible. You cannot sell debt. or that you can transfer the debt to someone who can pay, who is liable to the other one in a certain way. That's hawala. But this selling, so it cannot be. Hawala is a contract between essentially three parties, and each one has obligation to the other one. So it cannot be packaged like that. Other debt, that the debt documents can be sold, is only possible if it are connected to usury. Otherwise, no one will go, oh, I'm going to buy this document. For what reason? No. But directly, the injunction is by al-dayn. It's not prohibited. It's prohibited in Islam. It's not prohibited. So whatever someone accept or not accept, by al-dayn is impossible. It's haram in Islam. It's a type of usury. But the usury itself is doing usury and dealing with usury is later on. The latest injunction is clear. It is a destructive sin, and it is in the same way it is declaring war on his messenger. So it is the one who does it is a warrior hukman, but not necessarily by pulling the sword, not in action. Because usually a warrior is the one who uses material force to kill, rape, etc. This one is not using a material force, but using a much more important legal and monetary force. Because if you have enough money to lend in usury, you control the other people, is as if you're pulling the sword and standing on their head. You need money, you take it from me with interest. Otherwise, you'll get nothing, you'll die. And that's the reason after the catastrophe 2007, 2008, 9, the banks are surviving only on what? On credit cards. On credit cards, why the people are using credit cards? Because they cannot, with the current salaries and what they have and the inflation, they cannot get to the end of the month. So what they do, they take on the credit card. They have no other way. And the credit cards, mashallah, the interest rate is minimum. If you have all credentials, maybe 25%. If you have bad credentials, they will find a credit card, no problem, but you pay 50%, 60%. And then you have extreme cases, if you're not a credit card, emergency loans, like the owner of Newcastle United, what's his name? Even the church disassociated with him after the scandal came forward, is having some of these emergency loans. You take a loan, for example, to prepare a boiler for a real emergency, you need the money. The interest rate goes into 1,000 on a yearly basis. Usually the payment is within a month or something like that. It looks, but still within a month, it is something like 100%. For 12 months will be times 12, with the accumulated loan will be more than times 12, will be 1,200, and then if it's an compounded interest, it will become more, maybe become 1,500. But 1 month charge will be like 1,000, 100, 150, 200. This is so usurious, so extreme that the Sheikh, because this man was involved in Sheikh charity, the Sheikh did not know about that. They claim that Allah, I'm not going to go to their intentions. They disassociated. No, we are not going to accept anything from them anymore. This is too much. This too much is the growth from the little bit. It's the same. It will end there. But there will be enough people suffering from the usury system and from the shift of wealth from the lower classes to higher classes and accumulation. Because the higher classes, when they reach a certain level, like a critical mass of wealth, they will never go poor or something like that. Even if, for example, the family of Trump, they were billionaires before, or millionaires, having hundreds of millions. They were frugal, they were managing the money according to the old system properly. When he came, he went through several bankruptcies, but because he belonged to that family and have the credential in the banks and so on, he could borrow and fix the situation. Or Russian oligarchs come to him, buy him to help Russia in certain issue, and buy things to them, and have things recorded against him, which is deadly. And this has to come yet out. It's not only the Epstein, there's another one, the Russian oligarchy and the Russian intelligence controlling him in the background. So he's saved. Big owner of money, either banks or persons and so on, or association of owner of banks and so on, they must be bailed by the treasury, if ultimately, in a case of crash. Otherwise, the whole system collapses. And the one in charge, government, even if they elect the government, they cannot dare, because next election they will be smashed. So they have to bail these banks at least to fix the problem temporarily until the next election. The other one be catastrophe, be civil war. So they don't have the courage to save the situation or to come to the view and say it's all because the usury system, we have to cancel it. Oh, this will be a change of religion then. Exiting the capitalist religion. Yeah? You see how it works. And you find academic place and talking about the inventor of the money and this right and so on. This is all satanic ideas creeping in. The real ideas come from us even in these ayahs. That's the real ideas, the correct ideas. That other one, all the counter arguments are satanic. And making distinction between consumer and investment loans is again so not going to work. We see it in the West, investment loans and so on. The interest rate is usually for banks and for big commercial is reasonably low. They can do it and they still have some wealth. But for the common people, because the banks cannot survive after that, because the currency has lost value, whatever, you cannot fix it. So where to get it? Get it from the poor consumer. And these credit cards, which are the banks are, you see that you can check the accounts. All banks surviving in England and in the West and in America is surviving, essentially having positive books through the credit cards. That's the reason they are very ferociously fighting for the credit card market. And then they have to make insurances and so on for that in case someone fails. And the insurance add more to the interest of the card. And more, it's like going like that. This add to that, and this increase that, and this took and the consumer is sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. You should be surprised if you look at America. After that, even before that it started, but after that when it compounded. I was not there because political issues, but many family members went there. They were in a state of shock. I know them. I know America in the 80s. I was going there more frequently. It was an enjoyable country generally. One of the best things happened to America, that except in some back streets in Philadelphia and so on, where you see poverty signs, because these are usually blacks and forsaken people, and now racism playing a role. And starting with no wealth, and the system does not allow them to build wealth. Genuinely, it does not allow them to build. Even the hardest work, barely, except a singular case. But now, in the main street, under the bridges, you see these cardboards. Even there's a manufacturing of cardboards which are suitable to be unspun and make a house. So still they're a little bit better than the slums in third world countries who have made a haphazard from remaining of bottles, tanks, and things like that. But they're slightly better up. You can go and buy a card box which is designed to give you like a small room so you can put it under the bridge. In the millions living like that. And they're complaining, obviously, if you are used in time past to live at least in a flat, like a reasonable human being, American style, for a country of this richness and this power, now you are down to a card box house. All of you can say, wait until you end in a slum like in Africa and so on. Just take whatever comes, like sheets of metal, like scrap metal, like a door of a car, and fix it to the other one until you have this metallic slums. You know what real slums is, but this is a good step towards slums. Millions are living like that now. I don't remember saying anything like that when I was in America in the 80s and going until the late 80s. Never once used to be homeless. Yeah, I remember being in Denver seeing one man having something which looked like he had like a sleeping sack inside the street. But when I passed on him, he was sitting with a sleeping bag and in a pose of prayer. So I thought maybe he living like that by choice, religious choice, that you should have no house, you should be roaming around in the world, maybe. So it's a religious choice more than being unable to pay. Most likely, I figured. I did not talk to the man, and I passed peacefully and he greeted peacefully and fast. He was indulging in prayer. I don't know which kind of religion that, but we know there's a religion which regarded as pious to be naked, to sleep on the street and so on. We know that, not out of poverty. Only one I saw in Denver. We were staying there 2.5 years. Now it is catastrophic, according to Abdullah going there. It is unbelievable. In Denver itself, tens of thousands. Almost every street you have people sleeping in around corners and having sleeping bags and people in cardboard houses and the bridges and so on, because you have to have a bridge to cover, otherwise it will soften away. So you have to at least protection from rain and so on. The only places to be under bridges and so on, because under bridges are usually public place. Nobody owns that. So you go there and the police will not dare come to you because tell him, give me housing. They can't. So they leave their guys. They are not disrupting any flow of traffic or anything. So leave them. I think there's a high politics issue. What can you do about that? Nothing. Just close your eyes or try to solve the problem. They will have no solution. This is necessary in the development of the usurious system and the lack of the foundational belief about the vision of the universe. You're not going to get out of that by any reforms or legal action. Not. Unfortunately, that's the reality. But anyway, go back. So this is the first ayah mentioning riba and hinting it doesn't increase. You increase from people's money, but you don't increase in the eye of Allah, nor in barakah, nor in reward. That's stage number one. Then another stage comes after Uhud and mentioning the ayah of do not consume riba compounded. That's after Uhud, and it intermezz between the ayahs of war and the battle of Uhud, which was have a catastrophic result, hinting that one of the reasons for your failure to comply to the commandment of the Prophet and staying behind the mountain is that you love money and booty more than you are willing to comply to our command. And one of these was make that resident in your heart is consuming riba. And then the ultimate smashing command came. Or who you believe, leave the rest of any riba whatsoever, compounded, not compounded, and be aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't comply with that, I declare to you war. And the proper interpretation is done by Ibn Abbas when he said the one who's taking usury is a warrior, but because usury is sometimes not clearly understood by everyone, what is it exactly? There are many mistakes in understanding it. He will be educated about riba, and if he claims he's not aware, or obviously everyone will claim, almost everyone, that he was not aware about that, and he thought this is a kind of trade or deal, should be educated about that and forgiven. Next time, his neck should be struck. Compulsory. There's no escape. It's an act of war. Very full stop. Finish. Game over. Until Yawm al-Qiyamah. The usury banking and the banking system may come and say, oh, this is old-fashioned, that's not how economy works. No. Your economy works this way, leading into calamity. The other economies should be obviously a bit slow in development because you have to work with what you have and build by work, by brain power and muscle power. You have to build from there. You cannot grab money which is to be paid later, to be paid by you cannot abuse the future generation and their muscle and intellectual power which produces wealth. Yeah, thinking and muscles will produce from the available material in the world. It will produce goods and services. That's what will produce real wealth. But you can use up the next generation wealth and advance it today so that can have quick development and economic GDP increase every year and so on. No. Don't worry about GDP. Increase the real wealth. And don't come with the GDP because it's a summary of all services and so on. This is a fake measure. What does it mean our GDP is increasing or decreasing? What is the real wealth? How many real estate, how many urban area have been developed into housing, into parks and so on? How many factories have been built? How many machines have been replaced and so on? That's real wealth. How many products based on intellectual development has been made? Because minds have worked, and they worked in the material of the universe, maybe prefabricated materials and further. How much? Now and in the past, not taking from the future generation something which they may or may not. Ultimately, it will accumulate such a level that they will never be able to pay. Except the war comes and everyone declares bankruptcy and accounts are closed by bankruptcy. Elimination, because in bankruptcy, you cannot pay the debt, you pay only a fraction of it. Only a fraction of it. That's it. It goes down sometimes to a laughable fraction. 2 cents on the dollar. That's it. Bye-bye. Then the accounts are closed with no real wealth, whatever it is measured. No real wealth whatsoever. Maybe cardboards for slums, maybe. That's what it means.
I think we're heading to it right now, because I noticed that the Chinese markets, they're buying more gold. Even those.
But they will not escape that, because they still have the idea that usury is somehow intelligent and necessary. Their banks charge maybe minimal, but still the principle that it can be charged by loaning money. I mean, money is either these fake currency or gold, and even gold and silver, or currency backed by gold, silver. The principle is wrong. Naqd, money, being a real money like gold and silver, cannot be loaned out, or its equivalent in case of paper covered completely by gold, for convenience, obviously. Cannot make money by itself alone. So a loan contract is that you're just obliged to return it. That will be charitable. It can't be an investment contract. If you want investment, there are other kinds of contracts. There's mudaraba, there's murabaha, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's this. There's even installment sale. Some people say, this looks like usury. No, it's not. Because installment sale, you make the contract. The price is of the delayed price, or divided over, let's say, 20, 30 years, is different than the cash price now. Yes, it is. But it's not a loan. You receive a house and you live in the house, a benefit of the house already. And you're obliged to pay like this, in this sequence. While the mortgage, the original owner or the builder receive his full money from a bank, and the bank write a usury contract against you, and guaranteed by the house. They have to secure themselves. They're not stupid. So your ownership of the house is pending upon the completion of the thing, like that. There, your owner is well established. And even if it's used as a mortgage, or a security for that, it is a different structure of a contract. If you analyze it correctly, you see it's a different structure. And there will be a real house there, which benefit from you, and you're living it. The only thing, if you failed and there's no other things to cover the payment, or a charity coming, or no zakah helping you, then you may lose the house, because it had to be sold. And then it had to be sold, and the account will be settled, and you receive the difference. There, most likely it will not be, because the way a user is calculated is that most interest is paid at the end. At the beginning, nothing from the capital is taken, very little. It's still a burden of interest is bigger on you, because the calculation type is different. But legally, even the installment contract is different. So it's not, some people say, oh, this is essentially the same like mortgage contract. No, it's not. It's not a mortgage contract.
Okay, I think it might be good to stop here, because we've gone to 4 o'clock. So next ayah is Allahu alladhi khalaqakum thumma razaqakum thumma yumitukum.
And that's essentially the issue of giving and charity, and the difference in the universe of people having wealth and having restricted income is a connected area, these 3 ayahs. And I expanded too much outside of it a little bit, but I think it's useful in this context.
Okay, so inshallah, we'll start that ayah next week. So that'll be ayah 40. And we'll start the question and answers now, inshallah. If anyone wants to ask on mic, otherwise I'll go to written questions. Anyone wants to unmic, raise your hands, and I'll unmic you. Okay, in which case, so somebody's submitted a question in the chat today. It's related to inheritance. So can you clarify how to calculate inheritance shares when the fractions seem to sum more than 1? The scenario...
Give me the scenario. I'll tell you where the problem happened. This is the most fuqaha in the madahib al-arba'a followed Umar in this matter. But Zahiri and I think وبعض, but I'm not sure. And Shia, they followed Ibn Abbas, who is more correct than Umar. And according to Abbas, there will be no awal, no issue with the increase of fraction. But his solution, I don't remember in detail, is having a certain defect, but the Quran solves it clearly if you read it carefully. But let us see what is his case. He has a certain case.
Yeah, so this one is that. So this
Everyone
one is,
here.
I'll read the scenario. The scenario is one in which a man leaves behind both parents, a wife, and 3 daughters.
You see, there's a wife or a husband. It will never be awal without these two. Okay, keep that in mind. All awal in mentioned history, awal meaning that the fraction add to more than 100%. Well, they should be adding to 100%. Otherwise, you are doing something. Seems to be someone who asked him last time. It seems to be Allah is not able to calculate. Say no, the people who enacted awal, they are the wrong ones. Allah is not wrong. And we'll show you how it is.
Okay, so if we take 1/6 for both parents, that's 1/6 plus 1/6 equals 1/3. 1/8 for the wife and the 3 daughters share in 2/3. That makes it 1/3 plus 2/3 plus 1/8, which equals 1.125.
Okay, what's the total then?
So 1.125 if you took all that
Better
together.
to use it as fractions. 1.2, but it's more than 1%. 100%.
Yes, 1 1/5. Yeah.
More than 1. It should be totally to 1.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem here is that he applies the first ayah first, which is يوصيكم الله في أبنائكم. The next ayah is the master ayah first, but it mentioned because this is have a story because the revelation came in that case, and it has also a certain wisdom. The next ayah starts if someone who dies and leaving a wife and no children, then the wife will take a quarter, and if a woman dies and leaves a husband with children or no children, then he will take a half, and so on. So in that, if we have wife or husband remaining, depending on who died, is a man or woman, then we start with the second ayah. And then we do the fraction as it is. Then we come to awal. So we know then there's some problem there and the reading of the ayah. Now, if you read the second ayah, and that's the reading of Ibn Abbas, he said, wife or husband have the first right. They should get there in full, according to this ayah, because they have a faridah. Husband have a right to take half of the wife if she has no children, and quarter if she has children. And wife is the opposite. She has a right to take a quarter of his wealth, or share with other wives if he has multiple wives, and that's a share of the wife or wives. And if he has any children from them or elsewhere, doesn't matter, then they go down to the 1/8. The wife takes the 1/8 if the husband has children from her or from anybody else from previous marriage. Legitimate children recorded as children who have inheritance. So now when we continued at face value with the first one, we encounter this problem. Ibn Abbas said we go back to this one and give the wife, the husband, its right. And then the other ones will have, that's what he said, we have to rank them. If we get our case, we have to rank them who is more weighted than. That's the reason Omar objected. I don't know who is more weighted than others.
Quick one. What is awal in this instance?
Awal increasing over 100%. Awal.
Okay.
Alat, to say that this division alat. It doesn't add to 100% as it should be. How to distribute more than 100%, except either do pro rata and so on. Now we start as if there's no awal, as he said, with the addition in that. The correct way would be the following. Let's go to the ayah which had wife and children, because this is absolute. If the dead one has children or no children, answer. This is the first one. This is a fixed right. There's no escape from it. Then we see, after we have done and found awal, we go back to the ayah and read. We see in the case of husband and wife, then at the end of the ayah, what does it say? In the first ayah, say, farida min Allah. In this ayah, say, wasiyatan min Allah. Wasiyya min Allah. This is a wasiyya min Allah. Wasiya from Allah is also faridah, but it has special word used instead. Why the word wasiya used? I think everyone did not see that. Maybe one or two from the Salaf saw it. I don't know if Abbas used that correctly also. But I have to check Madhab bin Abbas because I'm not really involved with these areas. Wasiya meaning then, if essentially saying, if it does awal, then treat the remaining of the money as if it is after completing the wasiya. So all the types mentioned in that one, in that one, which is wife and husband, and also in case of kalala, which I address later, then you follow the kalala description. The kalala with a husband and wife present. The kalala without husband and wife will be the absolute kalala at the end of Surah An-Nisa. Previously, calculation produced awal. So you have to step back. Let me go to the second ayah, which is the master one, which we have to apply. There's no escape. Wife and husband, wives and husband, meaning partner, legitimate partner, which is a wife or a husband, is having an absolute right. There's no way to get out of that. That must be administered in full. Now, since we have awal, for the rest, you apply the rules of, you apply to the inheritance the right or the rules of wasiya. The wasiya is exempt from any distribution or any fractions. Yeah, we know that the dain has to be paid first, and the wasiya has to be paid first, and the remaining is the matter of subjective division. So in this case, the faridah of husband and wife, husbands and wives, is also a wasiya. So exclude that from the remaining and do the division of the rest as it should be. It will never come out. It will end with a completion, and sometimes end with lower than the total. And for the remaining part, which is the fara'id has left, there is a prescription for that in the famous ahadith. So it may become, the fraction may become less, but some remaining will be under hadith. Address that in a hadith. He never addressed that if it increases the fraction, because he relied that the people understood the meaning of the ayah. So apply that now. The wife, what was it again? Describe what he said. Let's read it again.
So he said, just a second.
Assuming debt and has been paid.
So the scenario, so he has both parents, a wife, 3 daughters.
No, wife. Start with wife. That's a mistake. He start with the first ayah. That's not a start. Well, second ayah in that, because there's a wife and children. The first ayah relate to the situation where there is no wife and husband. So start with the second ayah. What is the share of the wife according to him? Read it.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about in this scenario. He said that in his scenario, he said that the 1/8 for the wife.
1/8.
Yeah.
Okay. Put the 1/8 aside. Have a scratch pad. You are write an eighth. Now, since it is awal, we have to work these other fractions on the 7/8 remaining, not on the total. The fraction of the remaining, because that part of the husband and wife is made by Allah, not only faridah, and he made it wasiya also. So treated like a wasiya. He has to be excluded, taken out by necessity, and what is remaining has to be treated as the remaining wealth to be divided. So now we start 7/8. He said, mother and father take a 1/6 each. That's what he said, which is correct. But from what? From 7/8. So a 6 is not to be deducted. It's what we deduct, a 1/6 of the remaining. That's 1/6 multiplied with 7/8. And do that with the other father, and do that with the children. It fits. Do it. Take the calculator out and do it.
Yeah, I think the brothers understand.
He can do it. Put a sheet of paper and do it. There will be no awal. I think it will exhaust the whole inheritance. Nothing will remain for the nearest male man of the kings. That's the regulation by the hadith of what remains from fara'id. Nothing will remain here.
Okay, and just a follow-on question from the same brother. Give me a second.
Let him calculate and tell us the result. There will be no awal.
Okay, if the brother wants to calculate offline, or just to move things on, we'll move to the next question. The next question. Wait a second. Can you elaborate on why you say the Samiri is the Sumerian? You know, the Samiri.
Very simple, because Samira, the one in North Israel, was not established, was not in existence at that time. That's it. So what is close to? Because they said the Quran says Samiri, it must be Samiri related to that. There's no other Samiri in the world. I say this is the mispronunciation. Samiri, Somari are very close to that. And the Semitic language in change sometimes the R to an O and so on, and to Ya sometimes. So the real pronunciation at that time should be, this is a hint also that actually the way they say Saumar, it is actually Saumar, not Somar. Saumar. Saumar, you can ease it to Somar by merging the A and O in this way. That's not the way the Arabic language down. It says Saumar, or you say Samar. Yeah, that's it. Specificality of the Semitic languages. While the Samira in Palestine is something else.
Were the Sumerians extinct by then?
What?
Weren't the Sumerians extinct by then?
It's essentially then we're overcome with the various tribes from South Arabia, with the Chaldean, etc., etc. It's a lengthy history, but all of them were before Old Babylon. After that, only artifacts are remaining.
Okay. Brother, got a question on the mic? I might just pop out just for a couple of seconds.
Far away.
Yeah. Brother, you got a question?
Because they claim Samiri, there's someone coming from Samarra. From Samira in Palestine. And Muhammad is so stupid that he confused that and transferred it back in time. That's the way they went. That's it. I say Muhammad is not stupid, or even if he's stupid, he will not do that mistake. But what is more damning for them is that in their scripture, there's no mention of Samiri or Somari or a blue devil or anything. What is mentioned is that Harun is the one fashioned the golden calf, which is absolutely despicable and rejectable.
Okay, brothers on mic, far away.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Firstly, I want to say, Sheikh, we are honored by your presence. Alhamdulillah. Sheikh, I have a few questions. Forgive me, they're not related to the topics that you've discussed, but I've been watching some of your videos recently. They're regarding Ilm al-Kalam. If it's okay with you, Sheikh, can we briefly touch on
far away, bro? Oh, it's open. It's open.
Oh, let's see if they deserve answer now, or maybe halaqa specifically, or yeah. Let's see, because Ilm al-Kalam issues are very lengthy. But let's say the questions.
Shukran, Sheikh. So, Ustad, I was watching your video yesterday. I think it was titled Barhat. He uploaded it. Blunders in Salafi Aqidah. Now you briefly touched upon emanation, specifically because it's quite prevalent. There's a growing trend regarding al-Qa'idat al-Wahid. I believe you said it's muhal aqlan for al-Qa'idat al-Wahid. I wanted to know.
I didn't understand what's al-Qa'idat al-Wahid. What's it? If you explain, if you read it, if you have written it, and what's al-Qa'idat al-Wahid? What is that?
Basically, that the rule of one, Ustad, that nothing can, only one effect can emanate from God. I believe I think it's the Sadrians, Mullah Sadra and the Masha'is, I think, who hold a particular worldview.
That's not like Ilm al-Kalam. That's the philosophy. They say al-Wahid la yasr al-Wahid illa Wahid. Only one thing comes from the one entity.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, Ustad, I wanted you to expand a bit on that, inshallah, if you can.
No, we don't need, because this is a claim which has no evidence in itself.
Oh, okay.
That's it. Just a claim. Like, for example, give you some Gnostics. One of them said, we know, as they started, we know that Allah kulli al-wujud, comprehensive in existence. Without most likely, he means he extended all over space without defining what space is. So to make the creation, he makes space. He has to make space for them. So he restricted himself, withdrew himself from a certain space, made a gap inside himself, and created the creation there. This utter nonsense. He started the imaginary things, ending with the imaginary things.
Right.
Because
So-
we know the eternal, the self-existing, we cannot start with him and deduce something. We have to start with the finite and go there cautiously with the limit. And then we postulate certain attributes, which will be the limit of the one we have, and in a cautious process. How they are, for example, we know that the possible universes were present in the divine present knowledge. Because the divine knowledge is the so-called present knowledge, علم حضوري, and حصولي, acquired knowledge. But otherwise, if we deny علم حصولي, then what the Quran is saying, that if a tree, a belief tree falls, or a small thing in a rock, etc., he knows that. Especially the tree falling, meaning this is the event is known to him. That happens after it falls. He knew it has fallen. That's حصولي, not حضوري. And this cannot be in eternity. Otherwise, you call it contradiction. That's the issue of qadar and divine knowledge. That the ilm حضوري, we have no concept in our mind. We know how knowledge in our inside, or how it is present in our. I can imagine the Pythagorean theorem and so on, but it is not clear for us. Is it in the structure of the mind itself? Because it is when we are born, nothing. We are blank. Does it grow because we interact with the reality, or it is there hidden and then the reality occurs? That applies for the finite being. For the infinite being, we have no concept how to imagine this حضوري, except this present knowledge in eternity. So see, it's present knowledge. How it appears to him, we don't know, and it's impossible to know, because we did not start with the wrong place. We started with the finite, which we have in that somehow under control to a certain extent, not to the infinite. But so لا الواحد لا يصلح إلا واحد, like the philosopher said, it's just utter nonsense. What is the واحد? Nothing comes from the واحد. What does it mean?
Yeah, now I was speaking to, there's a few brothers, they're quite popular online, and they're pushing obviously the Sina we claim. So I just wanted, I know alhamdulillah you've got
it's just say what means the واحد. Just an assumption. How do we know that? Does it illuminate in the mind immediately?
No, it
and
doesn't.
even that the واحد is absolutely simple, cannot be divided in different entities. You have to achieve that by going, what is the contingent characteristic, and being divisible and so on means it is contingent. So the existing cannot be divided. What does it mean as a model? We use as a model. It must be something like the mathematical point, which is again an abstraction. That's the model we can think about it, which is indivisible and so on. Someone say, what's about the absolute space extended? The problem with that is that the absolute space is an abstraction from the reality, and it has problems in its own definition.
Right.
But starting from here and now, and what we perceive, and establish that the independent existence, establish that everything there is contingent as on which we perceive, and again by experience and so on, and it's real. Is not our own imagination. That has to be excluded. That's what irrational completely. But this is discussed a bit in the book of Tawheed in simple language as much as possible. When you establish that, then is it possible that all reality is only contingent? It will lead to a contradiction. It will lead to infinite regress, which is another form of contradiction, or circularity, vicious circularity. So that's excluded. So there must be outside a being which is necessary.
Of course.
That's it. And then this being must have certain attributes to make it necessary. Various things. The best thing is to say everything which we can say about contingent being, we try to say it for necessary existing. Then we analyze, is this permissible? We find anything which is necessarily connected with contingency cannot be said about necessary existing being. Must be excluded. Must be excluded. And anything which can be does not relate to necessity, to contingency by necessity, cannot be conceived except for contingent being, must be applied to him. And in a way that's no imaginable possible increase in like, for example, if we come to the conclusion that free will, we know perceive our own free will. That's evidence from free will. We perceive our own free will. Yeah, some people say it is deception and illusion. Doesn't matter. We perceive it and we know what is it. We can describe it linguistically. We can do whatever we want and we can abstain from it. That's the definition of it. There is no further definition. Are we deceived, not deceived? That's another issue. If that's not necessarily connected with contingency, it is not. It is not. Then let me complete the argument.
Bismillah.
Then if we apply, say, the necessary existing must have free will, but to the utmost maximum possibility is absolutely free. Absolutely free, absolutely spontaneous. We have to say that. It cannot be, because our free will is in a certain circle. It doesn't fit to it. But he has no circle. Unlimited free will, absolute liberty and sovereignty. That's an evidence. That's not a description of the deaf blind nature. So a deaf blind nature is impossible from this regard. Unless someone prove us that the definition of free will is faulty and have intended condition. In our case, it doesn't have. Only what some atheists say, it is a deception. Because some other condition that the food I ate 10 years ago has an effect that moved me to do that against my will. Or something, which is, you see, it's contradictory. It's claiming it's an effect of something else in the background, and it's really, I think I am free, but I'm not free. I'm compelled. I have no free whatsoever. It's obviously so outlandish. It's so offensive. Nobody will agree with that, because then it doesn't undermine the concept. Because it agree there's some concept like that, but it's by deception, without any proof for that. So free will is definitely not connected to contingency, and it's a perfection. This is the attribute of perfection, but in humans and us, it is limited.
Of course.
And for necessarily existing, it must be unlimited.
Yeah, makes sense. Of course.
Another thing, like being in space. That's answer Ibn Taymiyyah, who claimed that being who can go and approach and so on is more perfect than a being who's like an animal is more perfect than yes, but this requires to go and so on that he is a limited space. Is in a certain limitation of space, because otherwise the concept of going out does not recognize as if he's everywhere.
Yeah.
So if we say about Allah, he can go and real in his being, not metaphorically, that his reward has come and so on, like some mutakalimin said about جاء ربك والملائكة صفا صفا جاء ربك. He came by himself somehow. If it requires a restriction, meaning he is in space. But if he can be in space, let's assume he can be in space, then there's no way that can be in a limited space. He must be expanding all over space. Then some people would say, then he is mixing with the creation. Then he cannot be in space. So the concept of space does not apply to Allah Ta'ala. So when we see Ja and so on, we must give it it is taken from the metaphor that you imagine, that common man would imagine Allah is like an entity, like a big man or something like that. It's okay, because the human mind is restricted in his imaginary and restricted power. It's okay, but he recognized that's what come in my mind is not the truth about Allah Ta'ala. It's not a straight. That's an argument, the refuting that he can go and so on, in the sense, or as the word mean in Arabic for common things we need, it must have some other meaning. Not going from space to space.
Ustad, I know some of them say, right, Qabla Shay, right, who was called La Makan. He has no Makan, Qabla Shay. But after Ashya'a, then there's a Makan which has a ta'alluq, Ustad. What would we say to that then?
What mean Makan for ta'alluq? What is meaning ta'alluq?
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Before that, nothing is, including no space. Did he create the space, or space is there already with him?
Yeah.
Impossibility. So all of this is just playing with words. It's playing with words. The reality is that if there is no Makan, and he exists with nothing before him, including no Makan, if Makan is happening after that by his own creation, then it is created. Then he is not in Makan.
Yeah.
The Makan is something else. Where is this Makan? We don't know. The Makan we see, the creation, it may be that presented the divine knowledge. Like the Makan we imagine inside the computer in the case of virtual reality and those things. But I don't want to go too very much in that. But say, this is all words which relate to nothing.
Yeah.
تعلق بالمكان. What's mean تعلق? This Makan must be something, not absolute nothing. So what is it? What is it? Before we say تعلق to it, what is it?
No,
because they start with the infinite or the unknown, instead of starting with the known and going step by step to the known, to the unknown in a controlled way, saying we don't know about him except, but we can say a few things about him at least. And then we don't know what we can say or cannot say. We put the principle, the best principle in that case, is that anything which can be said about a contingency, we have to classify it into classes. Things which are necessarily connected, rationally unconceivable, except for a contingent being, it cannot apply to him. It
So,
can.
Ustad, so, Ustad, so would you say, right, anybody who affirms a makan, right, by ilzam, then he has to be a mujassim?
No, it's not necessary. That's all words, just fighting with words. Mujassim is not, is irrelevant. What is relevant is to say, being in makan, in a limited space, and imagining makan somehow to be infinitely extended. Maybe it's a pure imagination abstraction, does not exist outside. It exists linguistically. In the language that even does not exist in our own imagination. We cannot imagine something unlimited. We have a horizon in our mind. The same we have horizon in external reality. What's behind that, we don't know until we go there exploring it. In the case of makan, which you imagine extended right, left, center, up and down, without limitation, it is the abstraction of that with what we started with, that I am in this room, it has walls. So I imagine the wall shifted, okay, possible, shifted. Then we say, to no end. That's a generalization of the mental image of the space. I started with the space I am in there now. Is that limit really outside, or it is just a linguistic expression for the limiting process? That has to be settled first. But individually, we don't need to settle. Let's assume it's there somehow in the reality. Let's assume. Then claiming that Allah is the makan can move from one place to another necessitates that he is limited. Don't use the word tajseem because it's playing with words. That doesn't bring you anything. So that then, if it's possible to say about him that he is in a makan, then by necessity, being necessarily existing, he must be in every makan, assuming that every makan is something which makes sense. But we recognize that this every makan seems to be nonsensical, just a generalization, linguistic generalization. It is not contradictory. It's a mathematical generalization which makes good sense mathematically as a limiting process. Then we can say, then even there we cannot be in his zaman. He's neither, he's an attribute of being in space or in makan does not apply to necessarily existing. He's outside. So the question, if we say that he is in all space or everywhere like people, and then you scream, oh, you mean he's in the toilet and so on, does not make any sense. He's not even in any makan in that sense.
Yeah.
That's the way to go, from the finite. Not saying he was alone, nothing there, no makan, and then he has ta'alluq bil makan. How the makan came there, first of all. He added something which he has a ta'alluq with it, telling you that's something where it has come. It must have come from him somehow. So his own creation. And for us, it appears mentally with this process, maybe. We don't know. We're going to find it here. I would say giving Allah any attributes of makan will lead to contradictions. Now you call it tajseem, you call it tak'ib, you call it dancing in a wedding. It doesn't matter the name. This is playing games with names. You have to say, what is jism, tajseem? Jism is meaning that everything exists in space. But we know there's things which do not exist in space. One of them is the necessarily existing because of the consideration there. So I wouldn't go in these old fights about that. The same would apply that the wahid can produce only one. Why so? Why it can produce more? There's no evidence for that, because start with the wahid, we mean the wahid that is necessarily existing, with an entity which do not know prima facie except that he is necessarily existing. That's all what we know. And that's dictated by the fact that the whole reality cannot be only contingency. Otherwise, reason collapses.
They're saying how can something singular lead to multiplicity?
Yeah.
This contradiction, they say, because if it's singular, which it is, then there is nothing to make multiple things out of, because there's only oneness, there's only unity.
That's applied to contingent beings, maybe, but there's no multiple contingent being which is really singular.
Of course.
If we go to the absolute singular, that's divine being, that's just existing, then all this collapses. That don't make any sense. It's not connected to real any necessary consideration related to the issues of necessity and existence. But
Yeah.
making, what's the meaning with making? If it is necessarily existing, we prove that it is undivisible, is impossible. Otherwise, it's contingent. So it's not divisible. So what mean something proceeding for him? Nothing. Only the solution is that he has a free will. He can create things. He can start creation with one act, with multiple acts at the same time. Actually, the word same time does not make sense because he's the eternity. So we don't start with this. We start what we know. We start what is existing by necessity of reason indicate, or we say, or reason does not make any sense. Yeah, reason does not make any sense. So contradiction is possible. So the one who says, I hear that in a video, one physicist say, and at the beginning, when the universe created itself at the Big Bang, the universe created itself. So must he be there before creating himself? If you accept that, then just take reason and dump it in the rubbish, and go to instead of there's mind, there's unmind or insanity, and then everything goes. Everything is goes. The universe maybe you're not there, although you think it is there. Everything goes.
Yeah, nothing makes sense.
If you make that choice, you go into a magic reality which has which has contradiction as a possibility. No, it's possible. There's contradiction. The possibility that contradiction is that two contradictory things cannot exist becomes feasible, becomes acceptable. If you choose that, then you will go into madness. Bye. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No, you cannot talk to you. There's no way you have a common ground of talking. He may say, I don't want to talk to you. So why are you telling us that? We don't want to talk to you.
Yeah,
but we can't tell you, if you think that you exist at the same time, go and commit what you call suicide. For us, you cannot make this argument because we know they exist different than non-existent, and life is better than death. We're not going to commit suicide to test this matter. You can't do it. So you cannot compel us. So this means our point of view is more practical, at least. Yours is not practical, but does not mean it's true or untrue. So you have to make this fundamental decision. If we start with rationality, we end with necessity being, which is by necessity a divine being, and only one, and cannot be split. He cannot give birth, and so on. That's it. Finish. Full stop. It's perfect, absolutely. And the only model we have in our mind for something absolutely simple is the mathematical point. That's the only.
What do you mean when you say mathematical point?
The point you see when you make a drawing and you have a plane. That's the only model we can envisage in our mind and use it as a metaphor.
Right.
To say like a mathematical point, which is non-divisible and so on, by abstraction. That's accessible to our abstraction and linguistic expression. So we say it's a good metaphor for it. It's not a mathematical point.
Yeah.
It's not a mathematical point. But this is a metaphor we can relate to the meaning of absolutely simple and divisible. Yeah, it's a metaphor.
Either ask about divine simplicity and your questions regarding DDS.
Yeah, Ustad, another question, right? You know, you've touched upon ilm husuli, right? Because from what I'm getting from what you're saying, Ustad, you don't believe that there's tajazzu fi zatillah, right?
That
now,
is,
how
that?
Yeah, meaning you affirm some kind of divine simplicity. Is I'm getting that because you don't believe that the sifat, right, or ashia, right?
No, this is also an improper discussion anyway. Because attribute connected to an entity, if it is really the entity cannot be thought without it, it is not something separable. Or they can separate it in my mind. They say knowledge separated from the being who is having the knowledge. In reality, that's an abstraction. To study them or an entity or that which have no attributes is a construct which is impossible. But we use them in abstract studies to analyze things. That's it. But they don't exist. So that an entity is having attributes more than a pure entity or the same entity is a nonsensical question. Because the pure entity without any attributes does not exist, an impossibility. And then attribute which is not connected to an entity cannot be flowing in vacuum. It's not possible. But for studying, we study the knowledge. Yeah. The knowledge as if it's something separate, as if an entity. It's not anything. It is the knowledge of the divine and the knowledge of so on and so on. That's it.
Ustad, now I have a question. Now I'm with
that's a prime example of linguistic. So the study is the sifat more than that or equal to that is nonsensical. But if we go to a necessarily existing being, separation is not possible, because even if you say there's a real decomposition, which is not. But if you say it's a real decomposition, then it cannot be applied to the divine. Then his attributes as his being, and his being is his attribute. There's no way to divide it. At least very existing. But the premise is wrong. The premise is completely wrong.
Ustad, would there be fair to say, right, that if you do accept composition, right, or tarkib, right, that it necessitates,
and that if you accept, but this is fallacy, but let's accept that.
I understand.
Then the divine being necessary, his attributes are his being, and his being his attribute.
I'm with you, Ustad. I'm with you, Habibi, right? Yeah. But what I'm saying is, for those who do, right, for example, the Taymis, they believe that there is tarkib, and the tarkib is hakiki, right? So, but wouldn't
then it is a contingent being. It cannot be divided.
Ahsan, I'm with you, Ustad. I'm with you.
But I'm saying the tarkib is, in this case, it is not tarkib. It is not.
I know, Ustad. I know. I'm just asking another question, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt about that. If they say it is tarkib,
it requires a mufassir.
Then they admit it is not a necessary existing being.
Because what they're arguing now, Ustad, right, is that they're affirming tarkib, right? But what they're saying is there's a counterfactual dependency. But wouldn't that still be problematic, Ustad?
What's counterfactual means? This is a word. What does it mean in this case? Apply it to me.
Basically, Ustad, what they're saying is, right, that one can't necessarily exist without the other. So the essence depends upon the attributes.
Meaning that can't exist without the other. They're necessarily connected.
Yeah.
So if we separate one of them, regarded as separate, it's just an imagination. That knowledge as a separate thing, there's not a separate thing.
But Ustad, I still.
It is not. But it has to be. If you tarkib, it must be two different. When we tarkib different entities which can be separated, at least in principle, it cannot be separated in this case.
But Ustad, isn't that still problematic?
No. It's probably they are stuck with this underground about it, which is saying the simple fact that attributes which are not connected to an entity do not exist. It's just a name. They are linguistic deception because you call them attribute ilm as such. That's a linguistic deception. That's it. You fall into linguistic anytime you do that. Then it's a tarkib which is not tarkib at the same time. That's not possible. That would undermine the fundamental rationality. I can tell you, if that's possible, then the universe created, not created at the same time. We don't need to do all that studies. Then we are in a magic world, not in a rational world.
Ustad, don't mind me. It's just I'm very inquisitive about these matters, right?
I know.
We deal with a lot of Taymis, by the way. So they're getting into modern analytic philosophy. So they're coming out with modern what's called models, right, by which they're arguing for classical
even the models they will fall prey into linguistic deception if they are not cautious. Like, for example, set theory was invented by Cantor and made enormous breakthrough in mathematics and was the foundation for Principia Mathematica for Russell and Whitehead. Jamil Jiddan. And they developed it. Luckily, there was it's not creeping, the issue which came. But later, after it's published, Russell detected the following problem. If we talk about the set of all sets, all, ALL, kull, that's the deadly point, then it cannot contain itself. It must contain itself because set of all sets, and it is supposed to be a set. The set of all sets, according to linguistic construction, seems to be something we're referring to. But if we do that, we come into contradiction. And we say, does it contain itself to escape that? Then we come into contradiction. So what's the solution of that? The solution is they made the axiom system to exclude that and work with a more axiomatic, more leave the naive set theory and improve on it. And a few axioms, until now, no contradiction has come, alhamdulillah. Okay? Agree on that. But what is the set of all set? As constructed linguistically, suggests to you there's something called the set of all set. In reality, is nothing. It's an impossibility. But language is capable of referring to impossibilities. That's it. It's a linguistic deception. This term, linguistic deception, is not quite common. There's optical delusion, a linguistic illusion, but nobody, and optical illusion and mental optical illusion, but nobody works really in an expanded way about semantic illusion. Nobody works in that as a specific problem. It's not coming to the conscious. It started coming recently in the last 20, 30 years, and I hope that I'm one of the first to see this point. That solved the problem right away. And the way to manage in the case of sets, which have symbols and work mathematically, and how to define sets and so on, is to start with a clean axiomatic system, which is essentially what ZFC, Zermelo-Frank C, and axiom choice. Because axiom choice is definitely independent from that, even by necessity of reason, but that's another issue. So if you follow that, then you are relatively safe. And they have put such axioms that all possibilities of this type, essentially going all them to this horrible set of all sets. They exclude it by saying a set is that what fulfills these axioms, which exclude the horrible set of all sets. That's it. But it's a new development. Humanity does not get to that. We're getting to that, alhamdulillah. So we don't need to dig what Mullah Sadr or Aristotle said. The one can have only one, the singular cannot produce multiple. And just imagination. The absolute singular is something we don't conceive yet. So all we can take metaphors from what we have, and you start with the finite. My advice in that, start with the finite and go there. There's no other way. Genuinely no other way. The other ways, starting with the infinite, will end in trouble, because they assume about infinite things just by hunch, by feeling it may be true, it may be not true, without being ever able to demonstrate. Because to start with the infinite, only the infinite himself can start with himself, nobody else. He can give us some metaphors, some images, and even we cannot have that. Even is not creatable. This is an attribute which of the necessity existing, which is not creatable. No creation is possible. And that's the reason creating a real divine son is impossible. Not only Allah did not have a son or something like that. Another ما ينبغي للرحمن. ما ينبغي in the case of Allah means it's impossible by necessity of reason and by necessity of his being and necessity existing being. ما ينبغي. The word ما ينبغي. Scan the Quran, especially if it's attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, means it is rational impossibility. Scan it, but take that as small homework. Take it for 2 weeks. Scan all ما ينبغي. Do a search for the word ينبغي or ما ينبغي and see what it is. If it relates to creation, it may have another easier meaning, but if it relates to Allah, it is impossible rationally and not even accessible to creation. And it's clearly clear. لم يلد ولم يولد. This is impossible. It undermines reason. Reason will collapse immediately. You go to a magic word, okay, fine. He has a divine son, and he's a satanic son. All goes. Everything goes. Doesn't make any sense. If you accept that and to live in an imaginary mental world, that's your choice. Our choice is more practical, at least, until we go to the necessity existing being, and then the whole circle closes, and this other one is proven to be not consistent and not closed. If you're happy to be in a arbitrary, unimaginable world, no necessity is there, then by all means, you are welcome. We'll put you in a mental institution and we'll care for you, giving you food until you pass away. And maybe you find a fatwa that will give you an injection to relieve you from your mental disease. That's all what we can do. Nothing can be done about that. But it's lengthy. It should be maybe a special halaqah for it. The problem is the starting point of philosophers and so on. They start with the awwal. If you start with the awwal, you are in trouble. You start with here, and then there is an awwal, and what's that? Prove that it must be an awwal, and then must be necessary existing, must be these minimum things. And now what can we say about him? We take it from what we can say about contingency. Is it possible to apply him? Is not. And then apply the principle of al-mathalu al-a'la. That's a good principle detected by Ibn Taymiyyah. We have to give credit to everyone. I think the first one to every kamal, every perfection for a created being, Allah deserves to have it in a highest possible level. That's okay. The problem is that, is the theory kamal or not? That's what we have to scrutinize. And there the minds we say, he applied that in the wrong way for that. We know that animals who can go and so on do really are superior to plants. Definitely are rocks who can't move. They look superior. But as this variety is because they are have a finite extension, which we may call jism, because they are jism. They have finite, but can Allah be jism in that sense that he has finite extension, assuming space is well defined before somehow? We see it's impossible, because if he can be in space, he must be in all space. Now, being in all space requires that space has been defined somehow, and it must be something eternal. But space is, for us, at least in the infinite space, is an abstraction. We are not certain even here that this space is nothing more than the abstraction, the extension of the imagination. The imagination for finite space, room, and so on, pushing the wall here and there is okay, we can do. But pushing it without limit, that's not okay. Mathematically, it can be done because it can be controlled by equations and certain limiting process. But it's only a process. It's not a final entity. And this is an argument within philosophy not settled until now between Brouwer and the other people of set theory. And they rejected Brouwer because it makes mathematics clumsy, actually. Instead of say the set of natural numbers is infinite, what they actually should be said according to Brouwer, the set of natural number is the one built by 1 + 1 + 2 and so on, plus, and this process can go without limit, divergent, that's it. But they say this is very complex. So every time to say it, I would say the set of infinite number at that limit by extension of the imagination. That's all, extension of the imagination. Is that reality of sight like that? We don't know. We cannot really settle conclusively until now. Maybe one day it will be settled. But whatever it is, it's an abstraction for us. The argument of, for example, Wahhabi and Salafi, when they ask them for Pakistani, where Allah? He says, everywhere. He's not here. Is he in the toilet? This is nonsense. Because the toilet is somehow evil or dirty for you. Maybe for Allah it's not. It's part of his creation. We don't know. He is attributing his taste of a filthy place and so on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which is wrong. We have no idea about that, what's his relation to space. But what's definitely wrong is that sitting on the doors of the masjid and terrorizing the people this way. This show a heart disease. And the mental incapacitated. They are mentally retarded and diseased in the heart. They want to get everyone to declare everyone to be a kafir or deviant. And we are the one saved sect only. That's the disease. That's his heart disease. That had to be cured with the treatment of the heart. But this is connected with mental retardation and assumption. And all that comes from taking the Quran mahjuran, neglecting the Quran, throwing it behind their back. And simple-mindedness. Some of them start to get out of that. I remember the following joke. The way their mind works is really incapacitated. He said, Ibn Abbas said, when the pen was created, it wrote in the tablets, all the tablets, which some people say it's 70 years long, made out of emerald. I said to him, but where you got that Mahfuz is like that? I said, Ibn Abbas said that. I said, assuming Ibn Abbas said it. So this Lawh al-Mahfuz is before al-Qalam. Because أول ما خلق القلم. And there's two interpretations. One is that the first creation at all is al-Qalam, which is a metaphorical, that we don't discuss that, go deeper. Said yes. So the Lawh al-Mahfuz must be created at that time or after. What's again? So he started, I don't know. Say, according to you, the pen is writing on it, so it must be there with the pen or before. With the pen will be created. Before, it will be with Allah. Can't be. There's nothing with Allah before the first act of creation. So he got 30 away, but they said, brother, There's no Lawh Mahfuz like that. The Lawh Mahfuz mentioned that is where the Quran is, and this is the calculation. The Quran is a writ in the first place and the pronunciation in second place. That's it. That's all it says. It's Lawh Mahfuz and Kitab al-Maknoon. That's it. It's not a tablet 70. What it means 70 years of emerald? Where does the emerald come from? Emerald is a composition material there. Is that some kind of super emerald? But these people do not distinguish between metaphor and non-metaphors. They're in real trouble, poor guys. Another way, even lower level than that, he said about women attending masajid. I said, they were attending time of Rasul Salam, and so on. So it's permissible. See, but it's discouraged because Aisha said, report from said, she saw what women did after the Messenger of Allah, and said, if the Messenger of Allah would have been alive, he would have prohibited them. Say yes. I say Aisha committed a blunder here, but she was not conscious. She was angry. She's talking angry. She's not an infallible prophet. Say, how come? What's the blunder there? Said, because said, if the Messenger of Allah would have been here and he would have given another ruling, the one he gave before his death. But at his death, revelation has concluded, and no new injunction can come, abrogating the previous one or changing it in any substantive way, unless he gave the condition. If there isn't, then do that. So it's what the Sheikh is saying without in anger, not noticing what she's saying, is that the Messenger of Allah will give ruling according to what he sees. He's not saying from revelation. Said, say, why didn't you think this way when you talk about Aisha said and so on? She's not infallible. Or do you claim that she's receiving revelation from Messenger of Allah? You are a kafir then. You're claiming Nubuwwah is continuous. Why do you blame the Shia claiming the Imam can do some abrogation? Or it is not a true claim. It is a more complicated claim they have, the common madhab. He got stuck. Another issue, he mentioned an issue coming from Aisha, which is not obviously that what Sharia injunctions. And then he repeated, say, I don't see the evidence. The evidence is this. I said, what's the evidence? Aisha said, I say, you mean Aisha sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? He was in shock. He doesn't even think beyond that. What he just blabber things which he heard from others. Aisha can say whatever she wants. If it's go back to Sharia, and we have a striking example of that. She had, according to, I think it's a good narration, it's not. She was arguing with Ka'b al-Ahbar. For some reason, she thought that Imran, the father of Maryam, the mother of Christ, alayhi salatu wasalam, alayhim jami'an, all because this house is all elected. Allah astafa Adam ونوحا وآل إبراهيم وآل عمران على المسيح عمران, his are elected over all creation. And somehow, Mustashrikeen used that fallacy later. She thought this Imran is that the father of Musa and Harun. By the way, nowhere in the Quran is mentioned that Musa ibn Imran, Harun ibn Imran. Check the Quran for me. Everywhere Musa is ever mentioned that's from Imran. Not the Quran. That's in the Old Testament. But assume that's true. So this is the whole assumption first. Maybe it's their great-grandfathers. We don't know. Maybe it's a mistake. It's another name. We don't know. We cannot try it. But let's assume that's the case. Somehow it came in Aisha's mind that this Maryam is the Maryam mentioned in the Old Testament, maybe discussed with the Jews and so on, it was not critical enough. Is that? That's what the Mushrikeen said. Muhammad is so dumb. He thought Maryam is her. Now Ka'b al-Ahbar said, no, they are, as far as I know from the calculation of the Old Testament I have, between, and he's also mistaken, but between time of Isa and the time of Musa is 560 years. Oh, that's wrong. It's almost 1,500. But see, that's his calculation. She said, Kadabta. He said, mother of the believer. That's what I have in the Old Testament as a calculation. But if that's what you say, you heed from a messenger of Allah, then it is the truth, I must tell you. Otherwise, that's what we have in historic records, is this. And Aisha remained silent. She did not hear it from the messenger of Allah. And she still said it and believed it somehow. She discussed with them Jews and either deliberately they took her for a ride or they simply believed this nonsense. We don't know. Most likely they took her for a ride. With this alone, we know that this is if mentioned by some people, is people who are also taken over ride by some Jews or made a mistake by conflating the names. But anyway, for a Muslim, believing the Quran is from Allah, there's nowhere. I could argue, who told you that Harun and Musa are the sons of Imran? Maybe some another name. This is fabrication of Old Testament. If we have the fabrication of the Harun, which is praised highly in the Quran, and the issue of the golden shaft, golden calf has been clearly detailed in the Quran, and that Harun could not object to that because they almost killed him and so on. And then Musa came and pulled off his hair. That's not a Samari. The Quran does not mention that the one who made the gold. It could not be possibly the one who fashioned the gold Samari, the golden calf. So your attribution in your books this to Harun is a flagrant lie if the Quran is true. So there's some contradiction there. Just compare the two. You have to make a decision which is telling the truth. The evidence of the Quran are huge and irrefutable. For the Old Testament, we have nothing except it goes back at the best maybe until 300 years before Christ. That's what the oldest document we have in hand. How it developed over the 1,000+ years, we don't know. And most scholars say that really this current composition started when the kingdom split and so on. And it's clearly the fight between the two kingdoms, and the branch this claim to be descending from Talut, and the branch claim to be descending from Dawood. And the fight between two kingdoms. Kings fights, and their cronies and their sycophants are fabricating history and merging books and so on. That's what we have in our hand. Does it contain some from Musa? A bit here and there, but no more we can ascertain. So be alert about these things, about the statement which is, it has nothing to do with obvious attributes and essence and so on. But this is the same trap, but here is even lower level. Show you that there's many of Hadith even much worse than Mutakallimin. Mutakallimin committed some blunders based on rational ground and without referring to the Quran, which will give them a guidance. And philosophers before that committed, if you don't blame them, that's all that they have at their time. They did their job. Come and overcome the mistakes and continue forward. That's the way to go. And still regard that's the ultimate truth. There's nothing. It looks like rational. That's the only way rational. No. That's the only rationalism work. No, that's not. What's the evidence for this statement? Or the meaning of them in the first place? Maybe they're just a linguistic deception. I gave the example of the set of all set to say how people could be fooled by a linguistic deception like that. Talking about a set of all set, as if it is an entity. It's non-entity. It doesn't exist. It's an impossibility. And everything is resolved simply. And to enshrine that, clearly, the naive set theory has been forsaken. Generally, it is usable and so on. And then things are referred back to axiomatic set theory. For example, in the version of Zermelo, Frank, and adding the axiom of choice. That's it. That's it. There's no escape from that. No escape from that. That's the way to go. Along the way, we know our restrictions, step by step, bit by bit. By the way, with the work of Whitehead and so on, establishing the natural numbers, how they work and so on, and derive that, does not rely on the set of all sets. So we don't need to rewrite it again. Even if they assume that somehow in a naive way, indirectly, and detected later that it doesn't affect their work. Their work has been confirmed, even the new axiom system, and then Gödel did the further development about internal contradiction or lack of them and so on, further improvement. And that is. But it just has to be studied on their own ground. So what Mullah Sadr say and so on, getting stuck on the Mutakallim, getting stuck with that, just abolish that. Take the best out of that and continue forward. There's plenty in the Mutakallimin is overriding and improving on the philosophers. But the fundamental error of first of all neglecting the Quran instead of taking it as an Imam first, you may find the conclusion of the Quran, if read properly, without taking Majur, all of that properly, may seem to be contradict some things to be dictated by philosophy, then you have to step back and start thinking deeper. We missed that, unfortunately, history by Academy. We genuinely missed that, because some of these were taken as absolute because people were deceived by such concept like Sifa is the that or not the that and so on. Just linguistic illusion.
I've got two quick questions, if you don't mind, then we can do the Palestine update. So one is, in Sweden, a government enforcement authority may follow a legal decision, seize a person's property when that person is unable to pay their debts, for example, a car. The car is then valued by an external company and sold through a public auction, similar to what they have in the UK. The costs of valuation, administration, enforcement, and sale are normally charged to the indebted person. The proceeds are then used to repay the debt, and any remaining surplus is returned to that person. The auction is transparent and the bids are visible to the participants. The system is designed to prevent fake or manipulative bidding, although individuals may still attempt to exploit loopholes or circumvent the rules.
And so humans are humans, yeah. So what's the question?
Is it permissible under Sharia for a Muslim to purchase such a car at an auction, considering that the vehicle was seized from its owner to repay debts and that all related costs are imposed?
According to even Islamic law, that seized and sold against his will is happening to someone went bankrupt, as most like Mu'adh ibn Jabal at the time of Prophet, and he auctioned all contents except keeping him, say, even the debtor wanted to take his clothes, say, give him a cloth at least to cover his aura and may a cup at home and so on. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no problem with that.
There's no problem with that. Unless you know it is seized illegitimately. That's something else, but it seems to be seized legitimately according to Islamic law and any law system. What would be not legitimate after the advent of Islam, if someone is sold as a slave in his debt. That's not allowed in Islam. That's abolished. The only way you can have a slave is as a prisoner of war or as sabi, woman of a nation which has the fighter has been exterminated, and the woman and children have to find some homes. So sabi is really an act of mercy, so that nation or that tribe is not completely exterminated. That's it. That's the only source. Nothing said where he's dead, although some in the first century said the same thing. I don't think from the Romans. Then we have enough dumb people in Islamic history and the scholarship.
Okay, next question, just for a quick one. I know, for example, beef gelatin. Somebody's asked, he's had some sweets that are for beef gelatin from China.
We're going back to halal and non-halal.
No, but I think this is from China. From China. It's from China. So China is not really a Christian country. Would importing beef gelatin sweets.
It's not slaughtering of the pure book, then it says the slaughtering is that. And the product of slaughtering is haram. That's simple.
Okay, so beef gelatin would be considered to be lahm, and it's from
it's edible part. It's from the edible part.
Okay, cool.
The non-edible part is clear. That's the bones after being boiled and the bone marrow is taken out. That's not edible. That you can use it from pigs everywhere, even from pigs. The same with the hair is not edible fundamentally, and the skin you can tan it and do whatever it is and make shoes and so on from khanzir, from cows slaughtered in China, etc. That's it. We said that so many times. Why people are wavering around that for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, people ask me these questions.
In general country like Britain and so on, general, if confessing Christianity with the common public, we assume this is a Christian slaughtering, whatever the details are. The same if it's slaughtered in a Muslim country. Who said that, for example, Saudi Arabia, they were importing plenty in time past. I think it's still continuing until now because there is not sufficient agriculture to cover all needs. They import from Turkey, frozen and also cooled, two types. And in the slaughterhouse are mostly Turks work, but we know that a good fraction of the Turks are atheists or secular, genuine Catholics. We are not going to check everyone in the slaughtering house if he's a Muslim or not Muslim, if he mention the name of Allah, etc. That mention. And to combat this problem, the Turks are cunning enough. And what they did, they say our slaughter are simple, they cannot bring that. So they put a microphone, which in a record, because Allahu Akbar, Bismillah. It became a mockery. Takbir and Tasmih became a mockery. That's when you go to that avenue. So don't go into a mockery.
Okay, let's last quick one. Somebody's asked, what's your thoughts Ibn Taymiyyah's making takfir of the Mongols despite them claiming to be Muslim?
Did he do that?
You know, with the Yazdigard or whatever their adoption of the rules, I thought he didn't consider them.
Yeah, if they're adopting that make takfir on them individually or on the system itself. At that time, the people did not distinguish.
Mhm. I don't know. What I do is I get questions without much detail.
I know, but I try to revive the people to do it better in the future. Yeah, I'm not saying that a question from you. I know that question there.
Yeah.
So if you apply the Yasik, the constitution of Genghis Khan in the public domain, then you have kufr wah. They should be removed from power. And fighting will be result on that according to ability. And the one who applying it, maybe personally a kafir, but in the case of Mughal, most likely the ignorant, did Ibn Taymiyyah and the others tell them this is haram and discuss that with them? They may have done it. We don't know. We don't know historic reality. But applying that as an action or as a ruling system is an act of kufr. Now, who does the act of kufr? Is he a kafir or not? It's completely irrelevant in the issue of governorship. So don't involve in that. It must be changed, and they must be argued about them and taken to court. If they don't allow, they are resisting by force, and fight them if you can. That's most likely what Ibn Taymiyyah said. And it's correct. That's what we also say, but in a more structured and elaborate way.
Okay.
That's part of Hakimiyya. That's fundamental. There should be no argument about that. How they structured it in detail, maybe there's deviation. Our structure, I think, is consistent and according to Quran and Sunnah to the maximum of taking all the hadith and all of the Quran on board. Good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go to Palestine update now. I'll stop the stream.